What's going on, everybody? This is the Blue to Green podcast, and I'm your host, AJ. Thank you very much for tuning in. This episode's going to be a little bit different than what I normally do. This one is not cannabis related at all. On this particular episode, I have 3 veterans of the United States Armed Forces who have been through the process of having traumatic issues and things that have happened while they were in service and got out of the service and then made claims to the VA, and what the process has been for their own health care and what they've been through, what they're currently going through, and the issues that are with the VA. I know there's been a lot of, it's been in the news a lot. It's no secret that the VA has substandard care in some parts of the country, Phoenix, Arizona being one of the worst. Again, a quick Google search can show the issues that they've had. But I thank all 3 of these veterans for coming on to my podcast and talking about what has happened to them personally, their personal stories. And I implore all of you to please send this to as many veterans as possible, lawmakers, Kirsten Sinema, Mark Kelly. And I'm not trying to get my name out there. What I want to do is get their stories out there and talk about the issues that they have had and are currently having, and it's been an ongoing issue. One of them has even had to protest for her own health care out in front of the Phoenix VA. So I'll put my contact information in the bottom and all that good stuff. You can email me at BluetoGreen.officialpodcast@gmail.com. And again, I thank them for coming on. One of them was on the phone, so you'll see. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please send this to as many veterans as possible, and anybody who has a vested interest in veteran health care and what happens after you get out of the military and have a claim and all that stuff, and how you have to be your own advocate. So thank you very much for tuning in. I hope everybody learned something, and I hope that we can move forward with positive progression. And that's one of the things about this episode is we don't just sit around bitching about it. We try to come up with solutions and what could happen and what could make them feel safer and better and get better health care. So thank you very much, everyone. Take care. And by the way, I don't edit anything out, so if we say something stupid, it stays in.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like
Trying to
maybe in your
refrain
mind,
from
and I was like, you're gonna edit that out,
my
right?
normal language.
Right, yeah, and you're totally allowed to cuss. I don't give a shit about anything like that. That makes no difference to me.
I'm bad at that, so.
Yep, not a problem.
We all are.
All right, so we are live. Thank you very much for coming on to the Blue to Green podcast. This podcast today is not about cannabis in any way, shape, or form. This podcast is going to be about, first of all 4 of us are veterans. And Lacey, I do apologize since you're not in front of me. I apologize that my brain does not register that you're here. So,
No worries.
So if you could real quick, Lacey, could you give a little bit of your background?
My background, I was in the Air Force for about 5 years. Did a tour in Afghanistan, got out in 2008, and have been battling the VA for about 14, 15 years now.
Okay.
Now I still work for the federal government, though. I got mad enough at the VA that I went and worked for them so I could try to figure out what was going on. Like I told Jen last night, I made some progress, but obviously that's a big beast that, it takes years to try to conquer. But I now work for the Forest Service. I'm on a fire team.
Nice.
And then I do HR during the winter. So
Very nice.
that's where I'm at.
So we were having the conversation earlier about what the purpose of us all gathering today and talking about the VA would be, and kind of came to, now I personally, I'm a veteran as well. I don't deal with the VA. I have a claim processing through with them, but it has not gone through, so I'm not there for their healthcare yet. So I'm here to listen to you guys and also just ask questions and all that stuff. If you don't, and the thing about this, what we're doing today is it's not necessarily a bitch session. It's let's talk about the issues you've had. Let's talk about what's happened, your personal experiences, and how it can be made better. What are the steps necessary that you all feel that could make it better, that could make the quality for all of our veterans a lot better. So if you don't mind me asking, Lacey, what are some of the things that you go to the VA for? And if it's too personal and you don't want to say, that's fine. I understand. But, I just kind of want to get to the heart of the problem.
Right. Well, for me, I'm a 100% service-connected vet. Since Afghanistan, I was having like blackouts, rashes, breathing issues. It was just like an array of issues that started shortly after I got back. And I kept going, to the doctor. Then once I separated, I got transitioned into the VA system, and it just kind of kept being circles. It was like, oh, she's got PTSD or it's in her head. And, you know, like I said, I know I'm crazy, but I'm not that kind of crazy. And so I just was like, this is not right. I'm too young at that point. I think I was maybe 26
Okay.
or so. And so I was still pretty young. And I'm like, I shouldn't feel like this. But there was just weird stuff happening nonstop. And I would go in, I would document it. Then I'd be told, here, try this cream or try these pills, And so it still kept getting neglected. And so for me, I kept pushing for community care or, but I wanted it to be documented in the VA system because, like they say, we serve our time, we do our contract. Then the deal is that once we're done, they'll take care of us.
Right.
That's where the loophole lies, though, because it does not happen in return. So then I started seeking outside care in addition to the VA, and I would push notes and doctors, appointments in between both of the places. So then once I finally found a rheumatologist, they were able to find it, in about 5 minutes what was going on.
Okay.
They're like, it's not PTSD. It's not, in your head. You have a combined of like 3 or 4 different autoimmune issues in one. And it started your first blood test. If you look here, when you first got back from Afghanistan, the base there in Tucson at Davis-Monthan, they had even taken the labs and it showed that I was positive for different things. Why there was no follow-up, though, that's what was concerning to the doctor. So from there, it started a long journey for me of pushing and advocating for myself and lots of, just setbacks and stuff like that.
Was the blood work done at Davis-Monthan, was that done while you were on active duty or after you had gotten out?
It was while I was active duty, but it kind of got swept under the rug. And then, obviously I separated, had no idea what was going on, and just kept getting, having all these strange issues happen. So I was constantly in the VA or in and out of the hospital.
Okay.
So that's kind of where my journey began, with going against the VA.
Okay.
Trying to figure out what was going on.
Gotcha. Understood. So, and we'll come back to you. So I want to get Jen and Elena's take on as well. So Jen, if you wouldn't mind starting about what led you down your path for dealing with the VA.
Right. So I served for a little over 14 years in the Air Force. I was security forces, and unfortunately had a foot surgery that went bad 3 times. So I was inevitably put up for a med board, and they determined that I was no longer fit for service, and I was medically retired at the end of 2012 at 90% unemployable. At that time, I'm now 100% service connected, permanent and total. And leading up to my retirement, 3 foot surgeries back to back to back led to me being on prescription narcotic pain meds as a pain management plan, retired, transitioned to the VA healthcare system in the Midwest, and that continued. And long story short, because this is a whole nother topic, by 2014, 2015, at the end of the 6.5 years of taking these pills, I was being prescribed $600 a month through this VA. And,
holy smokes.
Right.
Going through 480 oxycodone in 21 days before I got off of them, just because it had become such a spiral down into, needing them, like this total dependency. I wake up in the morning, first thing I do is reach for that bottle. So I was being seen at that VA at the time for pain management, and that's where my follow-up care from post-military was being done. When I made the transition to stop taking those pills, one of the most memorable experiences I have is taking a bag of almost 900 pills to my provider and telling her, like, look, I'm in a crisis mode right now. I need to get these out of my house. I don't know where to take them. I don't know what to do. That particular VA did not have an amnesty box. A lot of VAs do have amnesty boxes where you can peel the label off, go in, dump your pills, no questions asked. This one did not. So I had to go face to face with my provider and tell her, I don't want these in my house. I want to get off of them. And she said, well, do you still have pain? And I said, yes. And she goes, well, do you want a prescription for muscle relaxers or something different? And I said, no, I don't want to take any of these prescriptions anymore. That led me to the pharmacy. She said, go to the pharmacy, talk to them. Well, you can't mail narcotics through the mail. So They said, you can't do that here. You have to go downstairs and find the police department, the VA police. Talked to 2 officers that I found. They led me to the police department in the VA, and they said, well, we've got these charcoal bins for you to dispose of this. And here, at this point, I'm so frustrated with having to tell a zillion people about the fact that I'm trying to get off of pills and looking to do the right thing. I was in Leavenworth, Kansas. I could have taken them to the street and made thousands of dollars. And here I'm trying to do the right thing, but yet feeling just nothing but embarrassment because there's no process in place to be able to do this. So I'm standing in the police office dumping bottle by bottle into this charcoal canister with at least 3 officers and another civilian employee standing there watching me. And somebody said, "Is your provider so-and-so?" And I said, "Yes." And they're like, "That doesn't surprise me because she's known for overprescribing." So I'm like, okay, well, that's nice to know.
Gosh.
Dump all of my pills in there, leave with my bag. And at that point, I really realized how much I had to advocate for myself, that in order to take control of my health, that I really had to be aware of what was going on, what I was being prescribed, what I was being told, what tests were being done. And thank God I have the mental capacity and ability to be able to do that. And we have a lot of older veterans out there, and I truly worry for them, because between technology and the changes with that and just the processes to just even make an appointment sometimes is just frustrating. And one office doesn't talk to the other. And for example, I tried to make an appointment the other day with my provider, and we use My Healthy Vet. I email my provider through My Healthy Vet. She responds, "We don't schedule through this. Call the main line." Call the main line. They say, "We don't schedule for that team. Call your provider back." But they did me a favor and said, "We'll actually send the message to your team and tell them they need to contact you to schedule this." It was a routine appointment, a follow-up for something that I needed to be seen for. And it's stuff like that. Like, I'm trying to make a simple appointment and use the systems that they have in place, and yet you still can't do it. There's still challenges with doing that.
It's too many layers of bureaucracy, and there's too many, hands in the cookie jar, whatever analogy you want to use.
Exactly.
Right.
And real quick before I forget, Lacey, what VA did you start going to? What was your home base, so to speak?
When I first got out, so I was still in Tucson, Arizona.
Okay.
So I was at that VA starting out. I can't remember what the name of it is. I think
No
it's like
worries.
Southern Arizona something VA center.
What VA are you at now?
Now I'm at the Bend Seabach in Bend, Oregon.
Okay.
But the main hospital, so those are just like side clinics. The main one is Portland, Oregon.
And then, Jen, where did you start? You said you were still at Leavenworth at that point in time.
I was going to the Leavenworth VA at that time.
And then now where do you go?
I go to, between downtown Phoenix and the Southeast Clinic in Gilbert.
Okay. And then, Miss Elena, if you wouldn't mind giving your take on the process.
So I was in the Army for 9 years. I was actually reserve. I had a couple, I deployed to Iraq for 13 months, had a couple head injuries when I was there, came back, had my first seizure, a grand mal seizure, got diagnosed with epilepsy, started having crazy amount of seizures after that. Obviously can't stay in the military. But since I was reserve, the Army said that I wasn't on the right kind of orders when the first seizure happened. So there was no medical discharge or anything for me. It was just a thank you for your service, go fuck yourself.
Wow.
And so I moved to Arizona when I got out, and was, working a regular job, and finally applied for VA disability or whatever. And I, you get free healthcare for like 5 years after deployment.
Okay.
So I had originally, when I was living in Fort Riley in Kansas, I was going to the Topeka VA just for some healthcare stuff. That was actually a really good VA because I have almost no people
Gotcha.
in Kansas. You know what I mean? The population there is no one. So it was really easy to get an appointment, everything else. And when I came to Phoenix and I finally filed, it took 18 months for me to get my benefits even. When I finally got my benefits, I was 100% permanent and total immediately.
Okay.
Which was fantastic, but it literally took 18 months.
Right.
My daughter and I were homeless for a few months in between until I finally got it because I couldn't work a job anymore. I couldn't work my civilian job. So I have been using the VA as my only health care since 2017.
Okay.
Literally the only healthcare. I don't have other insurance. I don't have other.
Is the when you are 100% disabled
Mm-hmm.
and you're using the VA's healthcare, is it like I remember from my days in, you had TRICARE and you could go outside of the VA health system. Is it VA healthcare, VA doctors, VA everything? Is that the way it works now?
Yes, so they have what's called the community care program, where if an appointment at the VA is outside of the standard of care,
Okay.
whatever they deem that is, then they'll send you to the community. However, with COVID and everything else, the community care, there was one person doing all of the referrals that are coming through community care. One person to review every single referral that was coming through, and then to find a provider for that person, send that person out through the community. For every single person at the Phoenix VA, there's one human being doing that job.
That's insane.
And-
I was going to say, and you're lucky if you get, the community care to go through.
Yep.
Because I've had several. I have one that's still pending from last November.
Yep. Oh, I'm sure. It sounds like it.
And I call
happens pretty much
every
everywhere.
2 weeks. What's the status? What's the status? And
Yep.
then it's crickets.
Lacey, if I may ask, is it a specialist doctor? It
is.
Okay.
Yep. It's GI clinic.
Okay.
But it deals with service connection. So, but those are the games sometimes you're going to be up against. And it's literally, I've always told my friends, it's survival of the fittest and most persistent.
Yep. That's why I've been out protesting in front of the VA several times.
And for-
Because
and-
me being the squeaky wheel, that's the only time anything
Oh, yeah.
happens.
Even with community care, you have to advocate for yourself. There was a
God,
chiropractor
yeah.
that I had ended up getting blacklisted. They referred me out to this chiropractor. The first thing he did was he decided he thought it was funny to step on the scale as he told me to get on it and weigh, and then went on about some woman who complained because I stepped on the scale and she didn't think it was funny, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't say anything to him, let it go. But then he puts me down on this traction table face down with my ankle strapped in, and he makes a comment, "This is where I take my first dates." And I'm like,
Oh my God.
right. So here is a provider that we can't help you, but here, go into the community. And an acupuncturist working on the same storefront, I didn't realize until after the fact. I noticed the room was dirty, but after the acupuncturist left the room, I realized that the pack of open needles that were sitting there are the ones that
my
he used on
God.
me.
Oh,
And I'm
God.
like, you get a tattoo, you go to a doctor, anything, they open that stuff in front of you. And I wasn't even thinking twice, never expected it. I turned, and you want to talk about a PTSD like flare. I'm like thinking, worst case scenario. I took the needles out and left in tears, and the guy's like, "Where are you going?" And I mean, that's an example too, is just like, you got to keep an eye out for everything,
You
even
really
within
do.
and outside.
That's you never shared that with me before. That's insane. That's just completely unprofessional on every level for a doctor to do, whether it's a chiropractor or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not that there's some really terrible doctors that they
Right.
choose, but it's also, sometimes it's not on the provider. I was going to see a chiropractor for a while through the VA. That was great. I had been seeing him for like 8 or 9 months. The man had not gotten paid for a single visit that I had gone to.
Wow.
Would you be able to run a business
Absolutely not.
providing service to veterans if the VA is going to take a year to
I've
pay
counted
you
that.
back for it?
That's
Yeah.
insane. And it was also
No
probably
wonder
at
no
a
one wants to
discounted
be
rate.
Right.
Oh, they never pay the full amount. Never.
Right.
I get the little bill
Right.
thing that says how much
Right.
it should be and how much they actually paid out, and like, so no wonder they're getting bottom of the barrel clients that are willing to take, veterans, and they're taking the lowest amount of pay, and then they know they're not going to get paid for however long.
I've said it before, and I mean it when I say people that want socialized medicine have obviously never gone through a system like this that's being ran by the government, and unfortunately it is. And they don't comprehend that these are the horror stories, and you're going to get the lowest bid. You're going to get bottom
Yes.
of the barrel. And we've all been through MEPS, and we all remember those doctors at MEPS. The doctors at the MEPS at the Phoenix were probably 485 years old.
Exactly.
I mean, they were just like individually, not collectively. There was probably 12,000 years. But it's just, the quality of care that you get, it's undeniable. It's not as good as regular medicine. It's not as good as, and I get that, there's the insurance game you have to play and all that type of stuff. But the fact of the matter is I want my doctors well trained. I want them to know, and I want my doctors to make a lot of money because I want them to care about their patients, and I want them to, give a shit about what's going on. So, Lacey, I did want to talk to you that recently I was exposed to a post that you had posted on Instagram, and Jen had sent it to me and said, this is the kind of bullshit that we're dealing with at the VA. If you would not mind just kind of giving an explanation as to what happened during this most recent, which actually spawned this conversation that we're having right now.
All right. So, I went in to do, I just got a new provider, had to fire the last one. And so we did a phone call appointment, basically tell me your problem list, et cetera, what have you. So I'd said, okay, well, I kind of want a baseline of everything, from STD tests to just women's health. And, because I'd been having some pain in like my lower left side and kind of on the front,
Okay.
And I do have an IED. So I'm like, it could be, related, what have you. So we go through it.
Time out, Lacey.
And they said, okay, well,
Did you say IUD or IED?
yeah, IUD.
IUD, okay.
I might have an IUD in there at this point after dealing with the VA. Who knows?
I was like, wait a minute, hang on.
I actually will not let them do the women's health care on
Okay.
that part. I go to outside care for
Gotcha.
that. But
An IUD, gotcha. All right, Roger.
IUD, yeah. So anyways, we, talk about it, and they said, okay, we'll do blood work, we'll do urine, and then we'll do a swab. Well, since I've been being seen at the VA, and even since a kid, you always would get a pap smear. Pretty
Okay.
standard procedure, that's to do all your tests. Well, then they said, well, you'll do a self swab. And I just was like, a what? I thought I heard her wrong. And she goes, yeah, you're going to have a self swab and you'll do it yourself. And I'm thinking first, like, okay, I'm going to do this in the lab bathroom. Am I going to be trained on how to do it? Like, I'm not a gyno, so I don't know. I'm obviously familiar with the parts down there, but I'm not sure where you're supposed to, how far to put the swab, all of that. So anyways, I get to the appointment, we do the blood draw, do the urine, and then the lab tech's like, okay, let's get your kit. Well, it's basically just a long, Q-tip
Right.
in a package.
So
And then I
was
look and
like a COVID test
I
kit,
fold it. Yeah,
basically.
there's nothing on there. And I'm like, well, are there instructions or, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, I'm not real sure either. Hold on. She left, goes and talks to somebody, comes back, relays some information. I'm just like, okay, I'll give this a whirl. Well, there's 3 other male vets getting their blood drawn at the time. And I'm going back into the lab bathroom where, you do blood,
Mhm.
urine, and feces samples.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, well, I have no gloves and I've got a Q-tip.
Oh my God.
Like, where am I supposed to do this? Do I sit? Do I stand? And so I just, kind of hiked a leg up on the toilet seat and
Oh my
tried to
God.
figure it out, and then, twirled it around thinking I knew what I was doing. And then it came to capping the sample. And I realized, okay, the stick is much longer than the vial.
Oh,
So,
my God.
and I've got it in one hand. You had to use one hand to insert, then you hold the
Oh
other
my
hand with the swab. So I'm going,
I don't
well,
have any
shit,
gloves.
if I touch this, am I going to cross contaminate, or what happens? I'm already in a dirty bathroom. So
Oh
anyways,
my
I just,
God.
I did some redneck engineering, and I just decided to take the top of the cap that had the foil and I just slammed it over the end of the stick, and it sealed it. But I came out and I had to hand them the sample, which I also thought was kind of weird that I'm handing it just straight to them over a vet's shoulder
Okay.
instead of through,
Oh.
instead of
Oh.
through the little urine sample holder in the bathroom. But I just
Come
was like,
on.
okay. And I told him, I said, obviously that does not look right to be capped. So if you need me to do another one, let me know. If not, whatever. And the lady just kind of looked at it. She's like, I mean, we'll make it work. And then that was kind of it. So I walked out
We'll
and
make it work.
yeah, like I told Jen, I said, another part of my background is, I've had cervical cancer cells in the past within
Okay.
the last year. So, you've got mild dysplasia, possible cancer. I want to make sure that I'm doing this correctly, because what if,
Right.
I don't get an accurate reading and I'm thinking I'm fine, and then really I'm not, so that was kind of a
Yeah,
concern
oh,
too. And
yeah.
I just was like, this whole thing seems strange, but maybe this is a new process for the VA. Like the doctor told me, she goes, we've had a couple other female vets do this, and sometimes they can get better results, or better, swab, which again, still doesn't make sense, because a normal pap, they're putting a speculum in there. They're opening things up so they can go straight in, so it was just
What
very
the
strange.
I
But I'm like, maybe this is the new norm.
Why? And I did I miss the part as to the reason why you had to do it yourself? Like, what was the reasoning behind that?
No, they said it's the least invasive route, and then if something does come up, then they would, have me come back in for a follow-up, and I'm assuming for like a regular PAP. So this was just kind of like lower level. You're doing a self-screening to see, if there's anything that comes up STD wise, or, cells that are off. But again, I've never heard of this. And I talked to RN friends after I left, and they're like, no, what in the heck? You should not be doing this yourself. You've never even been trained on
Right.
it.
Yeah, what?
You know, and yeah, I laughed. I said, what if I would have put it in the wrong hole? I mean, there's so many things that could have went wrong here, but
I wish I do
I'm
wish
not
that
trained.
I wish you could see all of our faces. I mean, now listen,
You should have seen my face
Right?
looking at myself,
Could
going, "What
imagine.
the
Oh
fuck
my
am I
gosh.
doing right now?"
I mean,
They should have handed you a doctor coat when you were going in there to do it.
No
you know?
kidding. So now I'm also a certified WebMD gynecologist. If anybody needs help.
nice. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't have the same anatomy as y'all, so there are things that I'm like, but this just doesn't sound right in any way, shape, or form.
Could you imagine
No.
if some doctor was like, "Here, AJ, just stick this Q-tip down your pee hole.
Just
Right.
put this right up there. Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
You
Yeah,
got
don't worry
this.
about it.
You'll be fine."
Just
Get on
watch.
in there.
Just look up sounding on Pornhub. It'll show you what to do. So no, I'm just kidding.
I'm just going, you say 3 to 5 inches, then there's like a black, mark on the stick. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So
God.
it was just a little bizarre.
I feel like
But
that's
these are the kinds of
dangerous.
things,
Like, you could
that
pierce
happen.
something,
Well,
you know?
that's what I kind of was like, what? There's so many things that go wrong. And I just try to look at it as like, here's a project. They said, go about this far, twirl it, cap it, be done. But it's
like
just like,
COVID
what if I was a
instructions.
90-year-old female veteran or,
Right.
Oh my gosh.
No sterile.
and
no
maybe they don't
gloves,
have
no
the
nothing?
knees to squat like I do, so it's
Oh
like
my
there's just so many
God.
things that are just insane to me. So and I'm like thinking as I'm looking around in this bathroom, like this cannot be sanitary. Like
This
this
is
is
not
why they
right.
give you gloves. This is why we're in a different setting when we do a normal women's appointment. But
Yeah, a sterile
this
sterile
is where
setting.
we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
And
sterile environment, not one where feces and blood and everything else is
No,
passed
my
through.
God.
And it would be bad enough even if it was just a normal routine PAP that you go to
I
every
know.
year, routine screen. But you have significant health concerns that you are trying to identify,
Exactly.
and to get a legitimate sample, you've got to be questioning that too.
Mhm.
Whether you're getting a proper sample. If it comes back normal, like, is it really normal?
Yeah, is it really normal or not?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Gosh.
Let's go down that road.
Yeah.
That's,
Well, and like I
I
said,
had
I told
a-
Jen, I'm the poster child of bad healthcare at the VA.
You and me both, sis. Shit.
Yeah, that's why I just keep pushing. I'm like, we have to keep advocating it though, because it's never going to change if we don't keep reporting it and pushing them and
well, I can tell
putting
you
in the
right now.
congressionals.
I'm a member of an organization here that deals a lot with lawmakers and all that good stuff, and I get in front of lawmakers and talk to them and all that. And I can tell you
Mhm.
right now, I will be sending this to them. I'll be sending this.
Can you
podca-
also add it? It took them 6 tries to get a catheter in me when I was hospitalized in Tennessee. That was fun too.
Here's a question that
You should have done it yourself.
right
Right?
are the VA hospitals teaching hospitals? Do they have people that are that aren't full-fledged?
Residents.
Everybody's an intern.
Everybody's an
Almost
intern.
everyone's an intern. That's why there's no
Yeah, almost
continuity
all
of
of them.
care.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I will definitely be sending this to them saying we need to do something.
I stopped going to my physical therapy appointment because I immediately lost trust for the provider at the fact that they use apparently copy and paste medical records from one to the next for the canned entry stuff. Active cancer in my physical therapy notes.
I remember you saying
my
that. That's
God.
right.
Active cancer. And that's not the first time I've had a misdiagnosis in my records or somebody else's information.
Hmm.
And thankfully we have the online resource. We can go in and we can see our records and make sure that they're current and everything else. And you can review what's in there. But I'm seeing this, and once it's in there, they can't be taken out. They can't remove stuff out of that official file.
So don't you think it would be worth having a conversation if you had actually had active cancer as opposed to you just a copy and paste?
Right.
Because they're too lazy to, follow. They just copy and paste like you said. So
Right.
Mm-hmm.
that's insane.
Yep.
I had a red flag on my thing saying that I had diabetes.
Oh God.
And then I worked for the VA in 2011. I worked for them for about a year,
Okay.
a little less. And I still have a flag on my record that says sensitive because it's technically I was personnel. And I'm like, so every time they're like, oh, are you an employee? I'm like, yeah, like 15 years ago I was an employee.
know, right?
But it's still, they just have so many, nothing gets taken out. And like Jen said, once something's in your record, it's in your record. I had a preschool fight go down in my record between nurses and the doctors in neurology at one point when I started having seizures again, before I restarted the seizure medication, because I was trying to get a hold of people and they were trying to get a hold of the doctor. And there was this literally like a preschool fight that literally went down in the notes. Like an administrator dinged the doctor and the nurses for what was put in my record, but that's there forever.
And
this little fight that they had in my medical record,
like,
a personal fight in between them.
oh my God.
But there's so much just terrible care. Let's go back down. Yeah, let's go back down the OBGYN road again. So I had 2 different OBGYN doctors at the VA, at the Phoenix VA. I had gone in because I was having some female health issues, some women's problems, right? So I went in to go get a pap smear or whatever, and the doctor, we're having a conversation, and he's like, "Are you in a relationship?" And I was like, "No, I'm sexually active, but I said my partner and I we use protection every time." And he was 70s, whatever, the doctor. The moment I said that and he knew that I wasn't married or whatever, his attitude towards me changed immediately. Started looking at me and talking to me like I was basically a tramp, right?
Right.
Conversation comes back or the results of the test come back, and they called me to say, "Oh, you have an STD. You need to go get checked." And I was floored. I was like, "Holy shit, how did I get an STD? My partner and I use condoms literally every single time." So I'm having this like back and forth conversation about how the hell am I supposed to tell my partner now that I have an STD, so they might. I have no idea how because we use condoms, but so they had prescribed some medication. I was going to go pick it up at the pharmacy. There was some issue at the pharmacy. So I ended up, calling the clinic again and getting this other doctor who I love her. She looked at my record and she was like, "Why are you picking up that prescription? You have a yeast infection." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "This doctor told me that I had an STD." And she goes, "No." She goes, in huge, bold letters, it says negative for that thing.
He just lacked the ability to comprehend what he was reading, apparently.
The ability to read. I guarantee you it was because he looked at me and he judged me before he even, do you know what I mean? He was reading the report like I had an STD before he, you know what I mean? He had it in his head that I already had that before he even saw anything. So then that got put in my record that he put that big STD, you know what I mean?
And that's there permanently.
Oh, gosh.
There permanently. So then, you know what I mean? 6 months down the line or whatever, I had another issue come up. And again, this doctor, he was like, "Oh yeah, I saw previously that you had an STD." And I was like, "Excuse me, if you look at the actual test from that, it says that it was negative." And he's like, "Lo, let me actually look at the test." Pulls up the test and he's like, "Oh yeah, I guess you're right." And I was like, "Are you shitting me? Here we're going back down this road again." I ended up having to go to the head of gynecology at the Phoenix VA to have him call me to talk about this and have a conversation about those doctors. And he gave me information that literally helped me. So I haven't had another like gynecological issue since then, with just like a couple of tips that he gave me.
And don't you think it would be worth him passing along that knowledge and training to maybe his doctors and employees that are there so that they don't continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again?
Yeah. But it's not just the doctors at gynecology. They're literally everywhere. It's everywhere.
Well, you've got a lab tech at the downtown Phoenix VA wearing one of those shirts that's got the guy on it, "Fuck your feelings." And
That's a lab tech?
Yeah. In the Phoenix VA.
Wow.
One day I was in there and I'm like, so he's got direct patient contact wearing a shirt, "Fuck your feelings."
That's professional.
I'm like, and this is allowed.
Right.
Like, I question why is this stuff allowed? Like, where's the accountability with this stuff? And it's just stuff that you come across like that. You were just scratching your head like, why is this going on? I went for a surgery consult with a surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon, for my shoulder several years ago. And went to the appointment, sitting in the waiting room, and, you know, they have like volunteers that help do escorting and whatever, different clinics. And this gentleman walks out and he had like cargo ripped kind of like jeans on and a flannel shirt over a t-shirt and whatever. And I get up and he calls my name and I'm going with him, and pretty observant person. I notice he's got a pretty good size knife clipped to the front pocket that he's wearing. Well, he ends up being my surgeon that I'm there for this. So his first impression, I'm like, okay, well, I guess it's like casual Friday or whatever. But I'm like, found it interesting that no weapons are allowed on campus, yet this surgeon's walking around with this knife clipped to his front pocket. Takes me into the exam room. He goes over my imaging. He tells me what's wrong. He tells me what I need to have for a surgical procedure, 30, 40-minute exam, and looks at me and says, I'm retiring in 6 months. I'm not taking any new surgery cases. So here they gave me a surgery consult with this surgeon who then turns around at the end of the appointment and says, but I'm not taking any new surgery cases because I'm getting ready to retire. And then puts it in my medical records that patient is unsure about surgery and she said she will decide and contact the clinic. So he didn't take any responsibility for turning me away as a patient. And I had to go to patient advocacy, and I'm like, this is not what happened. He told me he's not taking any more clients and no more cases. And yet now he turned it around and put in my records that it's on me.
So you just said you went to patient advocacy. When you went to patient advocacy, and we had actually kind of had a little bit of this conversation before we went online here about when you contact patient advocacy, it essentially gets rerouted right back to the same people that caused the issues. So when you went to patient advocacy, what happened?
I essentially just let them know what was going on. I don't remember anything that came of it after. I do remember being told then. That's when I learned that once it's put into your medical records that it stays there. So
there's no recourse on it whatsoever.
If there is, you don't know anything that happens. And patient advocacy they're such an overloaded system, unfortunately. I don't know. It's frustrating. All this is frustrating. And I will say there are providers there that I have come across. My mental health provider currently right now, I absolutely love. If it weren't for her, I would probably try to seek care outside. But you do have providers there that genuinely care, that do their job, and you can see their frustration as well.
Yeah.
For example, my mental health provider, we have a direct communication system through My Healthy Vet online. I can message her, set up an appointment, right? That's how this provider works.
Okay.
For 2-3 months, she was having IT issues with her messaging system where she was not receiving any messages from any of her patients. So I had reached out to her in kind of a crisis situation that I needed to set up an appointment as soon as possible. And after sending 2 messages and not getting any responses, I didn't make any phone calls. Could I have probably made phone calls? Yeah, I could have. But this is the system that's always worked in the past.
Right.
She finally called me and said, have you been receiving any of my messages? I haven't gotten any of yours. She's like, I keep putting in work tickets. I keep trying to get this fixed. And she's like, I guess the IT office, like, they're having challenges with this. And it's like, of all offices, like the mental health clinic and your provider.
This is the one that should be the one that works the best.
Should be very well oiled,
right.
you know? And it's like, I do want to say with all of this frustration, all of this is being said, like there are providers there who genuinely care, who do their job, who are there to help you out and do what's right. The unfortunate thing is it's the system as a whole needs
the processes to get that done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and
I agree.
And again, us having all served in the military, we understand that the military is a huge bureaucracy of red tape, and it sounds like that entire process is just carried over into the VA as well. You know, there's 67 points of contact for one thing, and you got to fill out 1,000 different forms, and maybe or maybe not that it gets there. So
yeah. Well, and like you said, I think having that conversation up front, you know, the new PCP I got, I basically just have to lay it down. It's like after I've had to fire a few of my doctors, I'm like, here's what I need from you. Here's what my expectation is. And here's what I'll do for you in return. I don't need to do certain things. And you just almost have to be that way to advocate for yourself. You know, even with patient advocacy, you don't get back to me right away. That's fine. I'm going to keep coming after you.
Right.
And then after that, I'm going to dangle the congressional complaint over your head until you get, but I hate having to do that. And, you know, myself too, I worked for the VA. It was exhausting. We were overwhelmed. and understaffed. But like you said, the processes are just so asinine that you're like, how can normal vets who maybe, like you said, don't have the skills or the technology, whatever, get through this? If
Right.
in my mid 30s am even struggling at times, I'm like, I can only imagine what a 70, 80-year-old vet
Right.
is having to go through to get this same level of care.
Right.
Even the consult for community care. I was told here in Oregon, you can't do acupuncture or chiropractic. I said, that's weird because on the VA national website, it says this is available to veterans. I was like, and being 100% service connected with these issues, that just doesn't seem to add up to me. So I kept pushing it. Took me a year, and I finally, at this clinic, was the first vet to get it to go through. But, it's just that kind of stuff. It's like, if I didn't have that persistence,
Right.
nothing would happen, I feel like.
You would have fallen
Yeah.
through the
But-
cracks, and they would have
Yeah,
just
I
said, "Oh,
mean-
look, we don't do that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you
Even
get
with
into
me.
a clinic like that, and then they authorize 10 or 12 visits. And if it's something like an acupuncturist that I've been seeing, I saw in the past, you get in and they authorize so many visits. And if it's something that's helping you, you go back to get recertified or like,
Yep.
get
And then
an-
it's a whole new fight.
right. And then it's like, nope, you
Mhm.
you used up your visits. Sorry.
Yep.
And so if you've got the continuous care of things that are helping you, alternative therapies or whatever, you only get so much of it. And then it's like, well, nope, you had your referral, you used up your visits. Basically, that's it. So you have to go through
Yeah.
and try and find somebody, hopefully, that'll maybe help you doing something else.
Start the process all over again.
Well, even with like the med collection, like you said, at one point, because I'm on the Gulf War illness registry, and they had me on, I think, 40 different medications at the time. And I said, no wonder I feel like shit. Like, look at all the crap you've given me. And I started doing homeopathic. So I'm doing acupuncture, chiropractic. I started CBD oil. And I told my doctor, I'm not doing all these meds anymore. I'm trying these other routes.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, it was like a full turnaround. I'm off of blood pressure medication. I'm off of this. I'm off of that. I now take one med, for my autoimmune issues, but that's it. So I went from 40 meds down to one because of changing some things and taking all those meds out. And I said, I understand we have to titrate slow so it doesn't, make my system go bonkers, but
Right.
why didn't we do this to begin with?
Well,
And that's
it's
what
much
is
easier to
frustrates me
assign
with
a
the
pill.
system. Oh yeah,
Right.
of course.
Y-
But we could alleviate a lot of pain and frustration and healing. We could help vets out if we took these alternative routes.
Yeah.
If-
They're slowly coming around. They just they recognize Yoga Nidra finally as a therapy for PTSD, which is like amazing.
Are they going to have
Anytime.
it offered anywhere?
That's a great question.
Amazing that they've recognized it. Are they going to
Right.
offer it anywhere? It would be super cool if you could walk into a VA hospital and there was a huge gym, a big wellness center where
Right.
you could take yoga
Right.
classes, and
Yes.
a big nutrition center where you could learn how to cook healthy meals, or where they had access to healthy meals even.
I mean,
Have you tried that MOVE program? They said I wasn't overweight enough. So I said, well, why do you offer a nutrition and dietitian plan, the MOVE fitness program, if it's not open to everybody?
Right.
I thought that was really bizarre too.
well, and one of the things that I don't know if you're aware, at least you're not, but I mean, Elena literally had to go down and picket on the sidewalk within. It's been within the last 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, right in there.
It
But
was like September last year, I think,
you had to go and picket
for the second time.
for the second time for your own health care. What was the outcome of that? Did anything happen? Did anybody listen?
Not really. I mean, I think I ended up getting mental health care outside of the VA, which was super beneficial. But like you said, huge red tape.
Right.
I'm making so much progress in current therapy outside of the VA.
Okay.
And I still have to do a renewal process to prove that I need to still
That you
be
still
going
need
to
it.
therapy outside of the VA.
That's frustrating too. Because my thing is like, it's about holding the VA accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my biggest issue is, because everybody goes, oh yeah, well, you can bypass the VA and you get good care outside. That's true. But why is it that we're not fighting harder to get good care in the VA?
Why aren't they
And
doing
that's
more?
because everybody goes, well, you have outside insurance. You're right, I do. But I shouldn't have to use outside insurance when the contract was, I fight for you. I've signed my dotted line, done my work,
Right.
and fulfilled my end. Now it's time for you to do yours. And we're not holding them accountable to do it. Because, yes, I know I can go to the outside. But my point that I'm always proving to the VA, or trying to, is to keep pushing them to try better for us vets. It's like I shouldn't have to go to the outside. I shouldn't have to do community care. you guys should fix this system for us vets so we don't become frustrated and then we just give up or we don't want to come altogether.
It should be a one-stop shop at the VA.
Right. Don't call it veteran-centered or patient-centered care if it's really not.
Yep, right.
Yeah.
And that's my whole principle of that.
Who is holding the VA accountable? Who is
Right.
over the VA? That's like
Yes.
legitimately who is over it. I don't even know.
Right.
I don't even know. And then each state has their own thing. And
Right.
then there's like sectors that are covered.
Well, I was just going to talk about that.
The VISN or
VISNs,
whatever.
right.
And then who covers that? Literally, it's a freaking hamster wheel. That's like before we got on here and we were talking about the VA White House hotline.
Okay.
They have a hotline that's actually at the White House that you call to make claims about a whole VA system, the Phoenix VA healthcare system, and you call and you make your claim or whatever. They just forward the claim to the VA in question.
Which is the problem.
And then
Right.
it's just the hamster wheel from there, and you're literally spinning around and around and around. There's no oversight. There's no way to say, hey, we're having a hard time with this. I think that's part of the reason why we came onto this podcast is because, one, every single VA that you go into, they have signs immediately everywhere that say no audio or video recording is allowed on the premises. So there is no way to prove whatever you're saying is going on there is actually going on there. And I get it, patient confidentiality
Right.
for other patients, but if it's just me and a doctor in a room for my appointment, why can't I record that?
Well, because then you would be showing how deficient in care they are.
Right.
That would be a problem.
Right. That's why.
Yeah,
That's
exposing
why
the truth.
The only way we're having anything get done is by having conversations about it, by picketing outside the
Yeah.
VA. Which even though
Yeah.
when I did that, guess who came and stopped me on my third day going out there? VA police. Yep. And social workers. Social
Yep.
workers came out and were like, "Oh, we got to shut this down quick."
So as opposed to somebody from the VA coming out and saying, how can we address your concerns? What can we do to help you? They send the police out and
To
they
say, "How do we shut you up?"
that's insane.
Right.
Not what is lacking here? What can we take care of? How can we make this a better experience? None of that occurs. It's shut
It
up
was,
and go
hey,
away.
you actually can't be picketing out here on the sidewalk because technically the VA owns this public sidewalk as well, is what I was told.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Well, and even if you put in a congressional, it's like it's a temporary Band-Aid. Each congressional I've filed, it's like, sure, it gets it taken care of because the VA, they have a deadline. They have to meet it within, I think it's 5 to 10 days or something like that they have to, give a response or, fix the issue. But long term, it's like, I'm writing you as my senator. What are you doing to help us vets out? You're just, filing a piece of paper to get it off of your desk. But, if these same complaints are coming back to you on repeat, again, there's obviously still an issue.
So can you, because I'm actually unfamiliar with what you just stated, file a congressional. So what
So
is
you
that
can file a
process?
congressional complaint with your local senators, your state senators. You
Okay.
can say, hey, I've been going to the VA. Here's what's going on. Things are still not getting addressed. When I did a VA appeal years ago too, I just kept getting like tossed to the side and the appeal just kept going on forever. And I finally filed a congressional complaint
Okay.
on that. And, the lady at the office, I can't remember who it was, she had helped make the connection, got it to the office, then they sent it back. And I mean, within 2 days, I had a decision letter. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? So I've waited 18 plus months, while they're saying they still don't have enough evidence. And then now I have just because I pushed it and you
Right.
put a complaint in. But I'm like, I shouldn't have to do that
No one should
when I'm
have to
following
do
the
that.
steps that you put in place for
Mhm.
us, to begin with. But it's like, and a lot of vets don't know that. They don't know that you can fire your doctor. They don't know that you can, go to patient advocate for certain things, or you can request, hey, I want community care. And that's kind of the lapse too. It's like, I remember when I separated, the Family Readiness Center, I don't remember really doing much. It was kind of like, all right, good luck, go to the VA if you have any needs, and then see you later. I didn't even know about filing like service connections. And, it was friends that were also former, like, MPs that had gotten out before me. They said, hey, did you file your service connected disability? And I'm like, my what?
Right.
So it's just that disconnect. And then over the years, just because I have had such a rocky road with the VA, now I have a lot of knowledge, and I try to tell each and every vet that I meet about it because it is a long road. It's frustrating. And, there's times you start to question, like, maybe I am insane, or, or are these things actually happening? But when they sent me to I also, the War Related Illness and Injury Center in Palo Alto, I had to advocate for that, to push, because I'm like, nobody can seem to tell me what's going on between infectious disease, mental health, this, that. And then I get out there and they answered so many things that I kind of felt was going on with my body overall. And I mean, but again, how many vets know that? Even my primary care doctor was like, I don't really know how to put a consult in for this, but I'm going to try my best. Well, and luckily it went through.
I still play I never deployed, I never went overseas, but I do have some injuries from the military. So when I personally got out, there was zero communication about the VA. And it was not until I got into my previous, after the military and got into my previous career, that I started meeting other veterans who kept asking me, did you file? Did you file? I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't even understand or know what that process was. And I actually did file a claim, and I did something wrong, and it didn't get denied. It just wasn't done properly, and I just haven't gone back through the system to do it yet. But yeah, there's zero. And I mean, I got out in 2006, so it's been a while, and I would assume that hopefully that they would maybe give a little bit better explanation, but it doesn't sound like that's happening at all.
It's still kind of loose. I had an Army buddy that just got out 2 years ago, and he was kind of all over the place too. So I'm like, I'm going to get you set up with a VSO.
Yep.
Because you need to see a veteran service officer. You need to let them file the claim. You bring everything and anything with you to the appointment, and then it was a smoother process. But he started with, I think it was DAV, and he's like, they just kind of sent me in a circle. And it was just really disheartening. And he said, even with the comp and pen, they're like, well, are you sure, this is caused from that? He was a Ranger. It's like, I'm pretty sure he probably did a little more than some others. But, it's the fact that you have to prove this over and over, even with these claims or appeals. It's like, that's where there's just that disconnect. No matter how many records, even coming back from Afghanistan, we were in the A-10 world. We had flight docs. So half of the records are missing.
Right.
Now I have to go get character reference statements. And I've played every game the VA has asked of me. We're talking thousands and thousands of pages of records. And like on the last appeal, they said, I don't even know why you've had to do this, because we saw it in plain writing, just within a couple pages of your records.
Oh my God.
But, it's just, but that's not where we're at. 14, almost 15 years of these games. But I'm like I told him, I'm not going to quit fighting, because if it doesn't at least help me, it might help the next vet once we can make these connections.
All right.
I appreciate that mentality very much, because I just don't know how to send people where to go, because it's not my process yet. So it's good to know that.
You'll get familiar real fast.
It's just completely disheartening to me that, again, this is the kind of bullshit.
And it could be a simple write up when you're leaving and transitioning. Hey, first stop, call the VSO.
Right.
Next stop, this. Third, it's not that hard to type something up. Let them at least get familiar.
Well, and what you even just said, though, how many veterans even know what a VSO is?
Yeah,
we shouldn't even need that.
Right.
The process should be easy enough for us to
be
do it ourselves. We shouldn't
Yes.
have to go through a veteran service organization to file a claim.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, though, those VSOs, they're technically not part of the VA. They're technically they're just like a nonprofit organizations.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So these are people, I'm assuming they're probably veterans that have decided that I need to help people navigate this course and get the veterans the proper care that they need.
Mm-hmm.
That should not even be a thing. That should not even be part of the process.
No, we should be able to just,
like I said, it's
file
a big
claim,
beast.
and that's why there's a huge push for this. The Honoring Our Pact Act right now is allowing veterans that have been deployed immediately to be allowed access for service because of the burn pit issues and all the other toxic exposure.
Explain this,
like
what
that.
you just said. I'm not even familiar with that.
There's a big thing right now. It's called the Honoring Our Pact Act, which is basically to allow for almost like 4 million service members to have access to healthcare because of toxic exposures from either being deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan, or people in the Navy, people that, you know what I mean, pilots, everyone in the service at some point, was exposed to some toxic something. And depending on what your job was, you were exposed to it way more often than other people were.
When I was in training, I was exposed to, they flat out told us what you're dealing and touching it right now is a mutagen. It mutates your DNA. And they said, and I said, well, what happens if I don't want to, this was just in training. I said, what happens if I don't want to deal with this stuff? They said, well, then you won't be training here and you'll get reclassed or kicked out.
Yep.
That's funny because that reminds me of the anthrax series shots when we got
Mm,
those.
yep.
Before
Mhm.
deploying, I said, well, what am I signing? Why do I have to sign a waiver and a liability form that I
Right.
can't come back at the government if this is a mandatory, normal shot?
Mhm.
And I sat there for about 8 hours, and we're supposed to be getting ready to leave for Afghanistan, me and about, I think, 3 or 4 others. And I was probably maybe 22 at the time. I was still pretty young and dumb, but I just was like, this does not make sense to me. I'm going through the horseshoe. You're,
Right.
stick me and hit me. And I said, and now I've got this one where I have to sign basically my life on the line. And I'm like, why? And then they said, if I didn't sign it, basically I would be court-martialed, UCMJ'd, because I'm disobeying a direct order. And I said, what I'm trying to do is get clarification, but I could not get the clarification. And at that point, my commander came in and said, this is your job. You need to do it, or these are your consequences. You're up against a dishonorable discharge,
Wow.
court-martial. And I'm just like,
You're like,
this
okay.
You can't
is
even turn
crazy.
on a flu shot.
So,
Like-
and that's what's crazy is like, so now years later, you're looking at the connections. And like I tell vets, you're going to be your best advocate, but also word of mouth, sharing your stories.
Yep.
Right now I have like a collection of rash pictures, which sounds weird, but between me and my buddies from different branches. And we're always looking like, okay, that one looks similar, or this looks that. Did you have anthrax, or were you around the burn pits, or were you with
Mhm.
this? Or did you have the smallpox shot, in Iraq?
Oh my
Yep.
God.
Or what about the anti-malarials, So it's like, it's just constantly trying to put info together to figure out what is happening. Because, people in their late 20s, early 30s, why are they having, heart issues,
Right,
lung problems,
right.
autoimmune? I mean, and it's not just one, it's like multiple autoimmune issues within one, blackouts, spores in the lungs. It's just, there's so much craziness out there that's what I've been searching for. My family and friends, they just thought I was kind of crazy for a while because they're like, you're like obsessed with fighting this system. I said, no, I'm obsessed with figuring out what's going on with us.
Right.
Why are my friends dying
Yeah.
just randomly from seizures? It's like, that doesn't make sense.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
Cancer is a big deal too.
cancer,
for-
yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
that's
the
the
same
other
like
big one.
the Vietnam vets that had to deal with Agent
Mhm.
Orange.
Yep.
When they were
Well, and they
spraying it, the people that were
Yes.
spraying it or loading it were in hazardous material suits, and they
Yeah,
sprayed
and
it.
there's
but they were
actually
like, "You're
articles
fine."
about that.
Mhm.
You
But
know
this
what I
is the
mean?
new round of Agent Orange.
Right.
Mhm.
But
Right.
it's through vaccinations, and there is a federal vaccination court, but it takes a lot of work to get into it.
Lacey, thank you so much for saying that. I am an autism parent. I have 2 children with autism, and I'm not going to go down this path right now, but
Yeah.
doing my own research, I did not know or understand that there is exactly what you just said, a federal
Mhm.
vaccine court where you
Yes.
could go and take, and I know, and there's other conversations to be had about autism and vaccines, but I know autism parents who have been awarded money from those vaccine
Mhm.
courts because they were able to correlate and show the causation of these vaccines did in fact exacerbate my son's autism. And here we are talking about the same thing of why does so many people have autoimmune diseases? Why do so
Mhm.
many veterans have shitty health and
Right.
piss poor health? It's because of how many freaking injections did we all get of
Right.
not FDA approved in any way, shape, or form, but here's an experimental one.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
it's undeniable that there is
Well, that's the
absolutely
thing. When you start
correlation.
researching the literature on it, it's
Right.
like, there's so much out there. And there's people who've been, pushing back against anthrax for years,
Right.
saying, look at what this has done in these different populations. Why was this administered? I don't think they do it anymore for military members. But I know, like, with our group, it's just OIF, OEF, there was a huge
Mhm.
number that
Mhm.
were, vaccinated with that stuff. So it's like, where does it begin? Where does it end? And that's where it's just going to you have to keep pushing and trying to figure it out.
Every single person I know who has had the anthrax vaccine, I did not get it, stated that they felt like absolute death after it, and then started having autoimmune issues after that.
Mhm.
I know several. One of them, my buddies, is still active duty. That has told me about that.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what the VA, they were trying to tell me, the autoimmune at the time, that was PTSD. It was all in my head. I said, well, I've never seen PTSD change like things with my blood. So that's some pretty extreme PTSD,
Right?
Right.
So that's why I'll just make a joke now. I'm like, oh yeah, if something goes wrong, it must be my PTSD, flaring up again, changing my blood count or, white blood cells. It's like, this is crazy, people. Come
Mhm.
on. We're not stupid. But
No, but how many veterans out there are not as self-aware, don't necessarily care about, not that they don't care about their health, but like, well, the doctor told me to do this, so
You
this
trust
is
it.
Right.
You
there you go.
trust
yeah,
it.
you don't think to
Trusted it and it
question it.
almost killed me.
Yep.
Like I'm on 600 pills
Yeah.
a month, like just sucking air
Yes.
and ready to potentially accidentally overdose at any moment, or just, I mean, it's horrible. You're getting sleeping pills with narcotics along with anxiety, depression meds, and you're mixing all these things, and you trust it, and then all of a sudden I came to a realization, like, this is not working for me.
No.
Like, there's something wrong with this.
Yeah.
The way I feel, the way I think, everything was just
Right.
toxic. It felt horrible.
Well, even in Tennessee, like I had bacterial meningitis, and they, basically put in the chart drug seeking.
Oh my
Not
God.
sure what we could do for her. I didn't have a diagnosis yet. And so they sent me home with Motrin, the cure all.
Right.
And I go home, and then my buddy stops by the next day. He's like, this is weird. Tank didn't answer. He came to my house. I was seizing. I was brought in by ambulance, unconscious. And then after 10 spinal taps, all throughout the time of the bacterial meningitis, they hadn't even administered any medication to me. So here I am, my brain is swelling into my skull. I'm in extreme pain. I've got like rigor mortis of the neck. I can't even move it. And I'm blacking out, bacterial meningitis is not fun. And so I'm just like in my mind, like, what are they talking? I've never even taken narcotics really for anything other than procedures that doctors have administered.
Right.
And then here I am, like, they're saying, oh, well, we just want to discharge you because we're not sure, what we can do for you. I was like, I don't even know what's going on with me.
And was this, were you brought into the VAER?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're still getting the same shitty level of care that you
Oh,
had
yeah.
been dealing
And
with.
so that was a long fight. And then I ended up having to pay for the ambulance ride because somebody had they went from, it was first labeled emergent, and then it got relabeled as urgent. So apparently there's a difference in the language. So I contested that as well. And eventually I got reimbursed for it. But I mean, it took another probably 6 months to 8 months.
And how much was
to
that
get
bill?
that cleared up. I think at the time it was probably close to $2,000, and I was like less than a mile away from the VA. So
that's pretty typical. And they didn't,
Oh,
and you said
yeah,
they didn't
so it
administer
was
any
just-
drugs. So they literally were just a
Yeah.
taxi cab ride there.
Right. And then, like I had told the doctor, I just said, get him out of here. He's fired. Get me a doctor who can actually look at me. And it was actually a resident that was going to school at Vanderbilt who is the one who saved my life. Because he's the one that said, she's having photophobia. She's having, she's throwing up. She's, blacking out. I think she's got meningitis symptoms.
Okay.
So he ordered a spinal tap, and that was the first one that I got, and they were able to find it. But I just went, this is crazy. I've got this 70-year-old doctor who's like, oh, she's drug seeking,
Right.
obviously a vet, just wanting to come in and do this and that. And then I have a young, 22, 23-year-old resident who's like, let's do this behind his back, basically. And then is the one who figured out what was happening. And then eventually, I got transferred to LA because I had another doctor, that was a friend who was a former Vietnam vet and surgeon. And he called the director of the VA at Nashville, was like, you're killing this kid with the medications and, the stuff, because they put a PICC line in me, into my heart. They had all kinds of stuff going on that was wrong. They got me transferred to LA, and then LA took all that stuff off, took all the meds out. And all of a sudden I started getting better.
Weird.
Yeah, real strange.
Almost like,
What do you know?
Wouldn't you know?
Yeah.
I know. So it's just like, it's been a ride. But, that's why I tell people, have someone that you trust that will fight for you. Or, because at times I wasn't even, they would just shoot me full of morphine. I couldn't talk. My head would go back, and I'm like, oh, I'm out later. And then I'd have 15 minutes of clarity, and I'd put my phone on speakerphone and tell my sister, record it or write everything down that I say that I can remember. And that's who advocated for me. And she was making all the phone calls.
And right now, under, I'm sure they're probably under some, I'm going to say the C word here and not that one, COVID protocols are under the COVID issues that have been happening over the last couple of years. Are they allowing you to take people in, an advocate with you, a significant other or your sister, or anything like that?
No. So that's the other thing, they say just the veteran, unless they need physical assistance, wheelchair, that typically you're supposed to come alone.
So there is nobody else there to be a witness and to observe all this stuff.
Correct.
Do you guys think, and I use the term guys just as a generality, do you guys think that since COVID has hit that the level of care has gone downhill?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like I said, a consult that's been in since last November, and you still can't get a straight answer from the VA, community care, or the actual outside provider. And so you just sit and go in circles. It's like, thank goodness it's not something that's very pressing or that I haven't died yet. But it's like, this is just the kind of stuff that you're like, come on. Or a phone call, like Jen said, it's like you're on the phone 45 minutes, an hour. And it's like, at this point, give us a callback feature at least, like so I can put my name in queue,
Right.
or something.
I had a day where I had to reschedule an appointment, and I started the calls at 12:30. 12 o'clock, I think it was, and finally had resolution at 1:30. It took 16 call attempts to the VA to get to the clinic I needed to go to, and it took 16 calls because I would get transferred, the call would get disconnected. I couldn't get a direct extension number the whole time, be put on hold to get connected to have the call drop. And I actually took a screenshot of it one day because I was like, 16 phone calls in an hour and a half of my time to simply reschedule an appointment.
That's insane.
Which is just, it's unacceptable is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have the technology to say, your number 700 in line. Do you want us to call you back? Leave your number.
Yeah, do you want us to call you back? Well, and
move
why
on
do we
with your
do
day.
so much outside contracting, with all these outside organizations? If we're paying them, get your money's worth.
Well,
and we should be able to, customer service, have them do a callback at least.
Well,
or take a note.
That's the
Can
thing.
You relay
though,
a message?
Right? Yeah,
But that's all they're actually doing. Every time you call so say you're calling the Phoenix VA, when you call that main number, you're not actually calling the hospital. You're calling the call center.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Sure. But that's all part of the whole.
You can't actually ever talk to anyone at the clinic that you're actually calling.
Right.
You're calling a call center to send a message to the clinic for someone in the clinic to hopefully see the message to hopefully maybe call you back.
And so you have zero in-person care or anything like that, or they say,
let me
unless
you march yourself down there, which is what I like to do. I like to go face to face and be like, hey, can you deliver this message? Oh, and here's these records that need to actually be filed this time.
Well, and I mean, and that all boils down to they don't want to do it themselves, so they outsource to other government, or outside government agencies that will do it for billions of dollars, and they'll make money with zero accountability. So there's zero accountability when it comes to the outsourcing of anything.
Exactly, and that's the biggest part of this mess of the monster.
So, what is the solution? What is the? I mean, what is the? Where does
burn it to the ground and start over?
Yeah, burn it to the ground. Literally,
they have
burn
SOPs.
it to the ground and start over. I mean, I questioned that so much when I worked there.
This is not a threat.
I was very frustrated.
Not a threat.
This is not a threat.
Just
Disclaimer.
kidding, FBI, not a threat. But I think it's got to start with the regional leadership all the way down, and then coming down to what kind of directors are you hiring here? Can they handle this? And then, your PAC providers, and then just down the list, it's like, and even just weekly meetings, like they need to kumbaya every once in a while because everybody is on a different page. When I worked at the VA, it was insane. I was working in the inpatient and enrollment office, both. So, we're dealing with vets that are coming in off of DTs or behavioral issues in one section. And then I'm trying to turn around and put on the happy face so I can enroll a new person coming in. And kind of like, don't, look over here because welcome to the shit show on this side, and it's just like, it was chaos and you're just so understaffed. So it's like, how do you give the same level of care? Or, in my case, I'm seeing the same guys and gals. They're coming in and out of the inpatient program. And so you go, is there like a 3 strikes you're out system, or, where is the accountability on both sides? Because now you're taking away from someone who is serious about getting help, but that's just a small part of this portion of the puzzle. But for regular healthcare, the turnover rate too is insane.
Yeah.
How long have you, each of you, Lacey, I'll start with you first. Like, how long have you been seeing the same doctor? Is it, or does it change all the time?
I have never had that. Yeah. In the last, what was it? Probably, I think 2 years ago, maybe. In 1 year, I had 5 different doctors that I went through.
As
primaries? Because they've all quit. As primaries.
Oh, my God.
And so it's like by the time I'd start to get like what I thought was a grip on my healthcare, then I'd have to restart the story over again. And I'm like, okay, so we're back to baseline. And that's why, like I said, on the recent one, I just said, here's where I'm at.
Oh,
here's what's going on. Here's what I need from you. Because now I'm just getting burnt out of having to repeat it.
What about you, Elena? How many have you gone through?
Oh my God. I don't think I've really ever seen the same person. I mean, my primary care doctor, I think, has been the same for like 2 years, but I don't see her for anything.
Right. Okay. Understood.
I see her for my 1-year visit to make sure that I'm still alive.
Okay. That's
So
good that they do
that's
that.
why they're pay-
That's
you know
that's a
what I
good
mean?
sign.
Like, we want to make sure that the money that we're paying out is going to a living human.
Right.
So
Yeah,
come on
right.
in for your one check to make sure you're breathing. But that's it. Otherwise, all my specialty doctors, it's basically always a different doctor when I go.
That's insane. What about you, Jen?
Yeah.
I'm on my second primary care provider in 5 years.
Okay.
And the reason that I got rid of my first one, and it kind of goes off of, you had mentioned Vision earlier, Lacey mentioned the regional leadership, I guess you could say, for the VA. Well, I had a simple exam form that I needed my provider to fill out. It was a 1-page simple exam form for an outside agency. Took it to my old primary care provider. Immediately got a call, you need to come pick this up. We don't do this here, with a note on it. I had to go research their SOPs, their regulation, and literally printed it out at home and highlighted it where it said, your primary care provider will fill out these exam forms for outside agencies. If they do not have the capacity to do it themselves, they will help you find an outside provider to do it for you. And here it is in black and white. And I took that to my provider, who then pushed an appointment through to the physical therapy department to get this done. Well, in the meantime, because of the issues that I was having and getting the runaround, I was trying to find where our VISN office is.
What's VISN, real quick?
It's VISN. It's Veterans Integrated Services Network.
Okay.
And there's, I believe, 18. They're regional oversight offices, and I believe there's 18 in the U.S. And in my mind, I think of like a MAGCOM situation, right?
Okay.
It's kind of like that type of thing. So I'm in the clinic and I'm asking 3 or 4 employees, where's the VISN? How do I contact the VISN associated with Phoenix? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know where it's at. I was getting these type of answers. I don't know. And I finally came across one employee who was like, oh yeah, I'll give you that information. She's like, people just don't want to tell you where it's at. And she told me this. They don't want to tell you where it's at. So she gives me an address, get in my car. I drive 25 minutes. It takes me out to the ASU research campus area out in kind of Mesa area.
Mm-hmm.
I pull up and it's like some school. And I go in and I said, it's not here anymore.
They don't even
Right?
have an
So it's not
updated
there.
address.
So I end up, I don't remember how I found it, but I finally found the offices between like Chandler Gilbert area. Go into the VISN office. I said, I need to speak to somebody. Like, I need help. Like, I'm struggling with this. I'm getting the runaround. Like, I'm just trying to get this simple thing done. And the girl at the front desk tells me, well, I'm going to be honest with you. She's like, the turnover we've had here with the leadership in the VISN office itself, the person that leads it, she's like, I can't remember how many people, it was multiple people in a matter of 2-3 years.
Oh my God.
That the turnover rate. So you don't have continuity. You don't have accountability. And here you have an employee at the regional office telling you, like, yeah, the turnover rate here is so bad that it doesn't surprise me. You're struggling with this, whatever. But here I am even asking employees, now, if it's a regional office for your facility, how do employees, for one, not know who it is, where it is, what it is, and not at least be able to provide you the resource? So is it like, do they really not know? Or is it they're just not wanting to tell you because they know what that's about? They don't want to get a complaint at their facility or whatever. I'm not quite sure. I never got an answer on that. But I did have to research the VA protocol. I had to print out, and I had to prove to my provider, like, it says this is part of your VA benefits package, that your provider will do outside agency physical exam forms or find you resources to help you do it. And I had to go through researching this to be able to get it done. And otherwise I would have had to go out in town, pay a doctor out of pocket. And then I start again thinking about elderly vets. Like, what if an elderly vet had this issue? They're not going to know to research VA regulation and how to,
or the energy to go through
the
it.
energy itself. Yep. Exactly. So I don't even know. Like, it's got to start from the top. It's got to start from the top and work its way down.
Absolutely.
And thank God to have some of the providers that are there, that are willing to help, that are actually there because they want to be and they want to make a difference. But I feel like the system, they're going up against so much, trying to do it on their own. It's like, if you find one, you want to hold on to them as long as possible. And I've complimented doctors before, like the mammogram clinic, right? I have this one doctor there. It's very thorough. She's amazing. She's at Phoenix VA. Every time I go in there, I thank her. Thank you for being thorough. Thank you for taking the time to look through this and taking the extra steps to make sure that everything is okay. My dentist, I've even let him know, thank you for doing this. And it's like, I want to let the ones know that are there doing a good job, and that are caring. It's important for me to let them know. When my primary care doctor changed, I said, these are the issues I'm having. Immediately I got response. Here, we've got you a referral for this, this, and this. And I said, thank you. Like, thank you so much. Fast forward a few years now, and she seems completely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Completely overwhelmed.
They're burnt out.
Just overloaded. She's changing her hours. She's adjusting different days she's working. She's not working certain hours anymore. And it's like, in the beginning, they're fresh.
Right.
They're there to help. And then all of a sudden you can just feel it, and you can see how overwhelmed they are.
It drains the life.
Yeah, they don't have the resources they need either.
Right.
To be completely honest,
Right.
I think that they need to just turn it into an insurance. Get rid of the actual big VA hospitals. Because I'm going to throw something else out there. I've just recently come to learn for myself that you cannot heal in the same environment that you got sick. And I'm not saying that everyone in the military did something wrong to me, or that the people that but a lot of that environment is just toxic. And I don't want to go. I am so uncomfortable every time I go to the VA, because it is just a toxic, uncomfortable environment. The males that are there for the most part, you know what I mean? It's uncomfortable. I don't like it. I don't feel safe there. I don't feel, do you know what I mean? I don't feel like my needs
we had
are
a lot of
being
the same
catered
stuff.
to because I'm a veteran. I feel like, I think that was the initial idea behind having a veterans hospital was, hey, we have people that specialize in veterans care, but like, that's not really it. We need to be reminded more than anyone that we are part of the community. We're part of the regular community now. And we need to be integrated in a way that's part of the regular community. So, and yeah, I don't need to go sit at a hospital with a bunch of other people that simply we're all just hanging out in an area simply because we all kind of went through the same thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. Just because if the care was astronomical, fantastic. But it's not.
And it's not just one, two things. We're human. We make mistakes. Like, nobody's perfect. You get misdiagnosis.
Right.
It happens, right? But it's the continual, it seems like the majority of the time when you deal with anything from making an appointment to a procedure, it's like there is something that you need to be aware of. Like, you need to have your awareness on point. You need to know what to ask. You need to know where to look, and you need to advocate for yourself. And it's just, if it were one, two things, but it just seems so consistently like filled with issues.
I think though that one of the things that also needs to be discussed is the fact that on top of all of the regular healthcare stuff, there's additional female anatomy that has to be dealt with.
Yes.
And Elena, I'm actually glad that you brought that up. I did want to ask about that. Is not the female anatomy. I'm familiar with that, but regarding the not safe feeling. I know for a fact, and again, I'm spouting off at numbers here that I can't necessarily back up. It's just anecdotal. Females are assaulted on military installations at an alarmingly high rate.
I
Go
probably
unreported.
would say that there's not a female that I have met that was in the military that wasn't sexually harassed or assaulted at some point in their military career, and I don't think that is too bold to say.
Nope.
I agree with that assessment, and just from the stories that I heard, I knew an ICU, or not an ICU, but an ER nurse at the base that I was stationed at before, and they said that pretty much 80% of all of the sexual assaults, not even just sexual assaults, but assaults, are not reported. And so when you're walking into an environment that hurts you, how do you feel safe? How do you get the quality of care? How do you get the healing properties that you need? I don't have an answer, obviously. I'm just asking questions here.
The only thing that I have really enjoyed about COVID for the last 2 years is wearing a mask in the VA hospital. Not a single dude has asked me to smile
No,
for the last 2 years, which has been amazing. It's been amazing, let me tell you. It's weird. Never in my life have I been like catcalled more than I do at the VA. It's just such an uncomfortable
It
space
is.
to
It's
be
just
in.
something
It
in
is
that
so
atmosphere.
uncomfortable. And then
That's why I
it's not
told
just
Jen, you
even
got to be
from-
creepy back.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's not even just from other
They come at
veterans.
me, I'm like, ooh, I can match
Yeah,
this
you're like,
energy.
"Hey."
Let's go.
Nice.
But it's not just other veterans. I have been standing in line waiting for an appointment, and I've gotten passed over by the person behind the desk because they assume that I'm a spouse.
right.
You know what I mean? I can't possibly be the veteran. You know what I mean? Too many times, and I'm like, no, I'm the veteran. I'm the person standing in line. Like, I'm not waiting for my husband. It's me, baby. You know, so it's
I think female veterans are sorely overlooked as well. And one of my best friends is a female veteran as well, and she has said the exact same thing you all are saying. And her husband is military, and so they have the stuff on their house, like, and they'll say, "Oh, thank you for your service," and "Oh, you're just along for the ride." She's like, "No, I actually served too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much."
yeah.
I think it's a very underrepresented population with its very own unique challenges. So, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying it's different anatomy. There's other things to consider, and especially when, again, the misogyny in the military is a real thing.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
can absolutely say that.
And you have to look at outside agencies, nonprofits, for example, to be aware of this and who actually make an attempt to, I don't want to even say cater, because nobody's asking for anything special, but to acknowledge things that are going on and to create safe spaces
Right.
for inclusiveness of across the whole spectrum, right? And I'll put a shout out to Wounded Warrior Project for that. Like, I'm in a same-sex marriage. My wife and I have gone on retreats with other couples odysseys for healing PTSD retreats, and I feel completely safe there. However, we go to the American Legion one night to deliver candies that were donated to vets. And within 30 minutes, I have a drunk individual coming up and he's asking to take us home. And it's like, this is still such a huge thing. And it's still that, it's like the barracks mentality, the climate, the culture that was in the military that you just kind of had to deal with, you had to put up with and kind of laugh it off. Otherwise, like, you're going to be the outcast and people aren't going to trust you.
Yep.
And you have to look at outside agencies and organizations to be able to acknowledge these things and to make you feel like you don't have like your skin crawling on the back of your neck walking in there because you're either being stared at or something said inappropriate or whatever. And it's like, I know people think, well, this is like woke culture bullshit, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. It's just human kindness and decency. It's nobody's asking for anything special. Like, knock the shit off. Like, quit being a creeper and like, just, be cool. I don't know. It's frustrating because there's been some small attempts. I will say there's at women's classes and different things, but overall it's just a system thing. It's the whole system has to be revamped.
And again, I'm not just making these claims because of the company that I'm in. I remember these things from the military. There was it was very male dominant type A personality, and you can have a female that's type A personality as well, but there still needs to be respect. There still needs to be, just let's just be not creepy and decent human beings. Like, that's a very simple and easy thing to do.
Right.
So
We went to the VFW. My wife and I were doing a service project to help them out.
okay.
Go to the restroom, and an individual sitting in the bar area looks at her, and she's never been really immersed in veteran culture. So it's kind of a new world for her, aside from the past several years. And he asked her if she molested the toilet seat in the bathroom. And it's like, here we go. Like, it just
Like,
doesn't
what?
stop sometimes. And then I had another individual come up to me and ask me about the room in the basement where they used to go have sex. And I'm like,
Oh my
do I look like
God.
you can just come up to me and say these things to me? Like, what? I don't know. It's
See, that's why
VA
I always
policeman,
respond.
I went to the VA police one time because someone whistled at me from their car. when I was walking into the VA hospital. And I was like, I know you caught that on camera. Whoever that guy was, I feel absolutely violated right now. Hell no, because it wasn't just a whistle. He whistled, he hollered, he had said some things. So a bunch of people turned and looked, and everyone was looking at me at that point. So I literally was like, yeah, please go talk to that individual.
I am a straight, heterosexual, white male. I fit the definition of what could potentially be misogynistic, and I don't understand that behavior.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I don't comprehend that thing. But again, when you're in a type A personalities and male dominated and all that good stuff, I can understand how that happens. But again, I still don't understand doing that.
Right.
Like it makes y'all feel weird, and it's creepy as fuck.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, it just is.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm at the gym and I make inadvertent eye contact with a woman, I'm like, well,
You're like, oh, dear God,
I'm just
God.
working. I'm sorry. Like, I'm just
You're all,
working
look at
out.
my
Like, I'm gonna leave right now. Oh my God,
They've
I'm so
got
sorry.
signs up in the VA. They've got signs up. I don't know if they're still there anymore,
I
but
think
at
they
one
took 'em
point,
down.
did they? At one point, they had put signs up in the Phoenix VA with instructions and kind of etiquette guidance on smiling and saying, "Hi, how are you?" and "You look nice today," or something like that is appropriate. But like,
Hey, give me a smile is inappropriate.
yeah, they
like,
had
they really
to
had to go
actually
that
put
far.
this on signs and hang them in the hallways as an awareness to people
Oh,
to
it's
like,
so
this
sad.
is acceptable and this is unacceptable.
Right.
That's insane.
Well, it's like the creepy clerk that I had was complimenting me. I had checked into an appointment one time, and they were complimenting me on my outfit, and I had a nice smile or something like that. And I'm looking around because they're like, oh, I really like your outfit today, and blah, blah. And then they described exactly what I was wearing. So I'm looking around like, what the heck? But this was literally moments, after I just checked into my appointment. Then I just start to see the clerk. He's like staring at me creepily. And then I'm going, I wonder if it's this guy. And then I wrote something back, just kind of being a smartass. And sure enough, he grins after he does it, and he looks right down. And I'm like, oh my God. So again, I reported that stuff.
Ew.
Or when I worked at the VA, you'd have people go by it, and I'd, turn around and say, oh, something the matter with your throat?
Wow.
And then they'd like look shocked and,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, ma'am. No. And I said, okay, I didn't think so. Keep moving.
Wow.
But it's like you have to kind of be that assertive
Right.
to get it to shut it down. But it's like I shouldn't have to do that
No.
either.
Yep.
No, not at all.
But for me, it's like I don't have a problem with confrontation. So, but I just think of all the other female vets that are probably like,
Right.
oh my God, like that's creepy, and whatever freaks them out. But my thing was like you said, teach just basic etiquette. Like, come
Right.
on. What if I was like, oh man, look at the booty on that guy? I mean,
Start doing that.
yeah.
Start doing that.
Well, that's what I said. I match the energy. If they want to be creepy, I get creepy back now. And then they're like, oh, this chick's weird.
Oh,
But I'm like, I
I'm
shouldn't
starting
have
to
to
play
do
dumb.
this.
I'm making
Yeah.
people explain uncomfortable comments to me now. If
Good.
you want to make a sexual joke and start laughing, I'll be like, I don't get it. Explain.
Yeah.
Nothing is
And then
more
they just feel
uncomfortable than
stupid.
someone trying to explain a sexual joke. Because there's, you know what I mean?
Well, what I meant was,
And you're like, yeah, okay.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, these
I
are
mean,
just
there's an array of problems.
yeah, like that's just basic. You should not have to be dealing with these issues as a female when going for your health care. It just
Right.
this should not be a thing in any way, shape. And again, like I've never had this experience. I've never catcalled a woman unless it's my wife, and that's we're in the house, that's different. I'm allowed to do that. But I've never had those experiences. I've never had those things. And to walk into what should be a professional setting, a fucking hospital with healthcare providers and all that good stuff, it doesn't even register or comprehend in my mind that they would actually have the balls to do that. And I don't know, I don't know what allows them to think they can get away with stuff like that. Maybe it's because they always have gotten away with stuff like that.
Right. That's what I was saying. Nobody's held them accountable and said, hey, you know what? You want to act like a creep? You're out of here.
It's accepted.
Bye. Reschedule.
How
in the
though?
military.
Like I don't, and I just don't understand that. Like how? Like I was in the military. I never once. I mean, for us Air Force, I was at a line number for E5, so I never was technically over anybody. I was shift supervisor, but like when I was in training, I was the red rope. I was over 180 airmen. So I was and none of that shit would have been allowed or stuff like that. Like I just don't comprehend how or why this is allowed to continue, and then to continue after you've done your service. Thank you very much. As Elena says, thank you very much. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
It's like, how is this allowed to continue in a healthcare setting where, let's say, I mean, not knowing anybody's history, and if they're in a fragile mental health state, this is not healthy.
Right.
This is not good.
Well, you've got employees wearing "fuck your feelings" shirts. Like, how do the people that are going there for care think that what they're doing is wrong?
Right.
Like, they have to set
Exactly.
the standard.
Yep.
They have to be the example of how to be in that facility.
Right. And I think the basic principle over this entire conversation is just be better. Just
Right.
do your job, be better, keep it professional. We understand understaffed. We understand underpaid. But there's a way to say, you know what, I'm really sorry. We're really backed up right now. You know, this is what we can do for you. And there are processes in place.
Right.
Yeah, and make the effort, to make those phone calls. Like when I worked at the VA, I mean, each day there would be probably over 100 and some voicemails, and I would make a list and I would
Right.
write out, if they left a good enough message and a number, and I would call each and every single one of them back. And, and it was after hours sometimes, but it was like, to me, I wanted them to know, like, we are trying,
Right.
some of us, but we can't get you right away. And a lot of them, just having that, they'd be like, thank you so much
Right.
for actually calling us back, because, before we were in this office, you couldn't hear from anybody for a couple months.
Yep.
So it's just, yeah.
We need people
Gotta
in
get-
power to advocate for us.
Yeah.
Like, we did what we were told to do,
Yep.
what we signed the contract for. We did our job. Like,
Right.
advocate for us. We only have a voice that goes so far. We don't have
Right.
the pull. We don't have the power, position, whatever, money to make a difference. We need people to step up and hear our stories and go, this is not right. Like, they deserve better. And like I said, we're not asking for anything special. We're not asking for, like, completely catered to, like, healthcare service. We're just asking for one, be treated
Human decency.
right, and then to have the system in place that's setting us up for success.
Right. Holistic healing. Yes,
Holistic, yeah.
there is a time and a place for serious medications. There's a time and a place for serious antipsychotic drugs.
Antipsychotics. Yeah. I was like, we don't want them
Psychotic drugs.
psychotic.
There is a time and a place for that stuff. But at the same time, you can take an individual, change their diet, help them along their journey and get them healthy and moving and all that
Help
type
them
of stuff.
find things that they
Mental health.
really enjoy doing.
How
That's
many-
part
Yes.
of what occupational recreational therapy should be, is helping veterans find activities that bring them joy, so they have other things to do. Finding, you know what I mean?
Well,
Find other things.
So
instead
when
of,
you got out of the military, and each of you asked this question, did you have that kind of lost feeling a little bit, or did you have I have a mission and I've got to go do it?
I'm still lost.
Right. It's a rhetorical question.
Yeah, I was
of
like, I
course.
think it's a long journey. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I was goal oriented,
Yeah.
but also like kind of like, well, okay, well, now I conquered that goal. Now what?
Now what?
Do I make another one, or, and you do, after a while, your relationships suffer. This,
Yep.
you come back and you reacclimate and you'll do well for a little bit, and then you kind of dive, and then you come back up, and it's just, you ebb and flow a lot, I feel like, because you are kind of like, oh, you have your people, but it's not the same type of camaraderie,
right.
and it's not as structured, and you just don't know, like, what is my purpose anymore?
Right.
And like, what am I here to do now
Right.
that I can make my own decisions?
Well, and when everything's not based on life or death, when
Right.
you're in the military, they're like, every single decision that you make from here on out, pretend as if it's a life or death situation.
Yep.
And when
Right.
we get out and that's not the case anymore, there's so much unlearning that has to happen. And so we're all just kind of sitting here waiting, like, if I didn't show up here at noon today for this podcast, like, was it a life or death situation? You know what I mean? And
Right.
in reality, like, it was a podcast. We're like messing around. Like, can I get there when I can get there?
Right.
But still, how did you panic a little bit on the way here? I did. Have a little bit of anxiety on the way here.
It's
Just
like,
like,
if
oh
I'm
my
not
gosh, if I'm
15
not going
minutes
to be
early,
there.
I'm late.
Right.
5 minutes early is 10 minutes late.
Right, and it's like, it's silly that that's the stuff that goes on, but all those small, silly little things end up adding up to
Anxiety,
so much.
depression, and what you just touched on is something that obviously I had the basic military background, and I said I never deployed or anything like that. a lot of everything that you just stated, I did have in my second career, which was law enforcement. And that's the exact, it's taken, I'm 5 years out of having left law enforcement, gotten out. I'm 5 years away from it. And I'm still like, wait, nobody's going to die.
Right.
Everything's okay.
Yep.
I could take a deep breath and nobody's going to die.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned to you before, being a first responder myself, working in law enforcement, you go day in and day out 24/7 anticipating something to happen.
Yes.
And you live in a state
Yes.
of anticipation. And then even in non-first responder jobs, you're told, don't miss that detail, pay attention to this, people's lives, resources, whatever is at jeopardy. And if you miss something, either somebody's going to die or you're going to go to jail, you're constantly in this state of anticipation and reaction mode.
Yes.
And then they give you a 1-week transition course on how to write a resume and file for education benefits
Right.
without giving you that breakdown of like reintegration, and
Right.
and you don't just turn it off. So here I am 10 years ago this December, I retired, and I am still dealing, not as severe, definitely not as intense as it was, when I first retired and went through the 3 years of just existing kind of, but it's a daily challenge of not thinking that you have to be so hyper focused on everything around you 24/7 that something's not going to happen.
Right.
Like if you miss something, it's okay,
Right.
And it's just it's the transition program to go out. The transition week is definitely needs a lot of work.
It's funny that you say that too, 3 to 5 years, like existing. I feel like that's kind of the time frame for a lot of people. A lot of buddies getting out, they spend, it's like an average, it seems 3 to 5 years where you're just like, what am I doing with myself?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no assistance along the way. There's nothing. There's
nonprofits.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we can plug some of those. But there's no. We trained you
It's
how
not
to.
where it should be.
Right. We trained you how to fight. We trained you how to survive. We trained you. The military is fantastic at making military members. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and we'll throw in the Coast Guard too.
Yeah.
But they're fantastic at that. But everything that we're talking about is. Some people don't do 20 years and then retire and ride off into the sunset. Right. They do. Some people are forced into medical retirement. Some people just do their 4 years and get out. And it's like, now what?
Mm-hmm.
Now there needs to be that holistic, like take for my example, again, no combat experience, nothing like that. But still, when you get out, there should be some form of a transition back into regular civilian life. There needs to be help.
And more than a week.
Yes. Yes. More
needs
than a
to maybe
week.
start like 4 months or 6 months earlier.
Yes.
It's a complete reprogramming.
Yes.
And deprogramming.
Oh yeah.
Deprogramming, I think, is the better way to say that. Yeah, I mean, there's some things that are going to stick with us for the rest of our life. The way we walk, the way we eat, those types of things.
It's funny that you even bring that up. That's something that should be deprogrammed.
I
when
agree.
you think about it, our eating habits, the way we pee. When you think about it, it sounds silly and we laugh and stuff, but when you really get down to the nitty gritty, the things that we're doing as fast as we eat, we have no idea we don't know when we're completely full or satiated. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When we pee and stuff like that, we're actually putting so much pressure and stuff on our bladder, unnecessary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When we're peeing as fast as we can and holding it until we're literally about to pee our pants.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like all of the little things that we learn that are wonderful for being in the military, all those little habits end up being detrimental to our health
Agreed.
At some point.
Agreed. And it leads to depression, anxiety, it leads to, just everything adding up and building up and no release. Mm-hmm. There's no, and for the ones who get out and then don't necessarily do anything or don't know what to do, that's what leads to suicide.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's what leads to taking their own lives when there are in fact resources out there. And I will add a link to the National Suicide Hotline onto this podcast as well, because I think that's something. I mean, there's stories. I believe it was here at the Phoenix VA. Don't quote me on that. I'll actually look it up. But there was a Marine Corps captain that was so fed up. I think it was a captain that was so fed up with the VA, he ended up
in the parking lot,
sitting on a
I
stack
do
of medical
remember
records and shooting himself in the head right there in the parking lot.
Suicides at the VA are often.
Yep. They just don't talk about it.
Parking lots. A lot of parking lot suicides in the VA.
And it's all from just being fed up.
Which is completely, I have been at the point where I have been just in screamy tears in my car at the end of an appointment, because you're literally, they're just screaming because you're like, am I crazy?
Right.
Am I crazy? Like, did I literally just spend however much time waiting for this appointment to go in there to not see the doctor that I was going to see, to have, you know what I mean? To have literally nothing happen.
You should not feel like that leaving a medical appointment.
No.
That's not the way it should be.
No.
You know, even if you don't get answers on something, there should be comfort, compassion, care, you know, stuff like that that helps people along the way. Like, hey, we don't know what's going on right now, but we're going to get you through this. But
yeah, the whole part of being a healthcare worker is to do no harm. You're not supposed to be doing extra harm. And basically that's like what happens every time I step into the VA. I just feel like it's like instant trauma, basically, the moment I walk in there, which is, I mean, part of the reason why, and like, they're there's way too many people, there's not enough staff. It's just another reason why I think that we should
push the cattle through.
Get rid of it all, because, you know, if you're literally trying to feed all of these people, and the population in Phoenix is ridiculous, and there's
ridiculously large.
There's one main hospital here, because the clinic's great. They have clinics. That's so cute. But guess what's at the clinics?
I have no idea.
Just your primary care doctor, basically. Sometimes they have a lab. There's no pharmacy at the clinics. All the specialty care doctors are not at the clinic. Specialty care doctors only at the main VA.
I'm assuming the OBs are at the main one.
Yep. Pharmacy only at the main VA.
So if you live in a suburb, like take Arizona here. So if you live in the suburbs and you need to go get a prescription, your ass has to drive to the VA and pick up your prescriptions.
Yep. Or you can wait for it to be mailed to you if it's allowed to be mailed to you.
Gotcha.
But otherwise, if you have, you know, like I have to go see neurology and cardiology, those are all at the main VA.
I mean,
and how far is that for you guys? Like for me, so in Bend,
it's like 20.
You know, it's a basic CBOC, but if we have to go to some of those specialty clinics, it's a 3.5 hour drive.
That's
both
insane.
ways.
That's insane.
Wow.
There's no.
And
way.
I've told them, I said I will not do. And they were wanting me to drive when I was having blackouts while driving, and I said, "Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no.
I'm not doing that." So I said, "Put me in community care. I'll take an Uber there, but I'm not driving 3.5 hours in the middle of winter to go see a specialty clinic because that's the closest VA."
And then they were probably like, "Hey, can you come this day? And then can we also schedule you another appointment the very next day as well? We can't get you,
but, you know, again,
in one day, but if you could
think
come
of these other vets, the elderly vets, like there's just no way they should even be driving that far when they should be able to outsource it.
Well, I mean, and take, for instance, any medical care company. Let's say here in Arizona, one of the big ones is Banner. They don't necessarily have all their specialists at one hospital. There's the whatever clinic that has these doctors, the endo that has these doctors, and you know what I'm saying? It's spread out so that you can get other care at other places, so that you're not all cramped into one place. This sounds horrible.
You're gonna do great, AJ.
Great.
Stay the course.
One good thing they
The
did
biggest
was
thing, like I said, you just have to be your own advocate, and you have to ask all the questions, even if it seems stupid. Ask the damn question. That's what I have learned over the years. I'm like, you know, they're supposed to be here to help me. I'm going to ask it, and if they say, "Oh, well, I don't know," I go, "Well, okay, then who's your supervisor?
Right.
Who would know?" And get me in connection with them, because I'm tired of I don't know. Because I don't know either.
Right.
And I need somebody that does know so they can help me figure out what the hell's going on with all of us. But it's a process. That's why, like I said, when I see young vets or, you know, my brother's buddies that are getting out of the Rangers, I just try to like take them under my wing and say, "Okay, here's a few things, few pointers as you're getting out."
Yeah, definitely.
Just try to help them.
I want to leave no stone unturned, and we can do this again, obviously. But like, I want each of you. What are some other concerns? Is there something that you want to talk, Lacey? I'll start with you because you're on the phone. What are some other concerns that you're dealing with?
I mean, I've got a long list. Like I said, I'm going to write a novel. It's going to be called like Tales from the Crypt, also known as Surviving the VA. But you know, there's just so many things. And like I said, I know my situation is not easy. When you're dealing with folks on the School 4 illness list, it's just insane, all the stuff that we have going on. So I know it gets cumbersome with some of these doctors. They're just like, I cannot go through, 5,000 pages worth of medical issues because we don't know.
Right.
But that's where I'm saying they need to have a better communication system, either with some of these research hospitals or clinics, what have you, and push vets like myself over into them so we can get that level of care. You know, your everyday appointments, I try not to rely on the VA too much. That's why, like I said, I've taken a different approach with CBD oil, eating better, you know, talking to outside holistic medicine folks, because I feel like I've gotten more from that than I ever have at a doctor's appointment.
Weird.
Yeah, right. But, you know, getting people connected, My Healthy Vet, like let them know what some of the things are that they can access, e-benefits, you know, stuff like that.
Okay.
I think that's something that needs to be connected right out the gate to just kind of help through this system. Because a lot of it, it's like people call, oh, hey, can I get my service connection letter? Or, hey, can I get this? Or how do I find my prescriptions? A lot of this, you know, with the younger generation could be avoided because they can kind of self-serve better than the elderly population.
Right.
But again, like we said, all these issues, it stems from up above. The whole system needs to be rearranged. It does. Needs to be burned to the ground, start back over.
Figuratively speaking, not literally speaking.
Figuratively speaking, you know, sometimes depending on my mood, it might be.
I understand the frustration. I just don't want, you know, whatever I put this on.
On your podcast.
I get a knock on the
Door.
door.
The black Suburbans outside your house.
Right?
Yeah, and
those are there anyways. I'm not worried about those.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Staffing issues are going to be the biggest thing too, because the turnover. I mean, and then you think about it. Your primary care provider. How many patients are assigned to that one provider?
Right.
You know, I would get phone calls sometimes 7:30 at night from my provider, and I even said, "What the hell are you still doing there?" And they're like, well, I'm still trying to catch up on my notes. I'm like, that's ridiculous. And then I said, if you don't mind, I'm going to write your boss because you should not be staying there that late.
Agreed.
When you came in at 7:30. You know, that's crazy.
I admire that dedication for doctors who do that or providers who do that. And
me too.
But at the same time, it should not be to that point.
Right. And that's why I said, I want to talk to your boss because they need to know you need help.
Right.
That's crazy.
Agreed.
So those are just some of my things. More staffing, better communication, you know, holding people accountable.
Right. And what does that accountability look like is the question to me. Is it, you know,
that's going to be, the hard part, because it's like, do you reprimand people or do you offer a different program? Right. And I think it's going to be hard because it will be a little bit case by case scenario. But, you know, again, just like what Elena was saying, like somebody comes in and they obviously see like guys catcalling a vet. If you're an employee there, you need to shut it down.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You know, and that's the kind of accountability. Like I said, when I worked at the VA, I did shut it down. And, you know, I was very assertive with vets, but I wanted them to know, like, hey, if you're going to come in here, you know, you're going to tell me, I mean, I got some wild stories from the inpatient program, but, you know, I had a guy one time basically fly off the handle and be like, I should gut you like a pig. And, you know, he goes crazy. And then I said, well, shut that door real quick. And he looked at me and I'm just like, shut it. And then he shut the door. And then I was like, well, we can do this one of two ways. It's like, we're either going to go after each other, or you can go back out, come back in when you're ready, take a breath, and let's start over. I'm here to try to help you. But if you want to fight me and get crazy, we can go there too.
Right.
But, you know, it's like that kind of stuff. It's just that environment, like you said, I think it just breeds anxiety in a lot of people. So where is that accountability? But I think that's a good start. You know, you see something that's messed up, correct it.
That needs to be
report it.
Yep.
Do something about it.
That reporting it on a peer-to-peer level, not reporting it, shutting that shit down on a peer-to-peer level is what needs to happen.
Sometimes it took me going out and just right to a vet, and I'd be like, you know, what are you doing? What is your deal? And then they'd finally calm down after you talk to them. Well, turns out they were just having a bad day and they didn't have their medication.
Right.
Okay, then why didn't we start with that? You didn't have to go psychotic on me, you know, when I'm just saying, hey, how can I help you? But sometimes it takes going to that next level with them.
Well, and like even Jen stated that seeing an employee wearing a "fuck your feelings" shirt, that's when a peer needs to walk over and just go out, change your shit, and then come back in here. That's completely unacceptable.
Yeah, when I worked at the VA, I used to have to wear slacks and like a dress shirt. So I'm like, dang, I would have loved to wear t-shirts and whatever I wanted.
Wear a "fuck your feelings" shirt.
Yeah, fuck your feelings.
That's insane. That's
and
totally insane. Jen, what about you? What do you feel as though some of the things that need to occur?
I mean, basic continuity. You just down to amnesty boxes. you don't have them in all VAs. Like if you're going to give that opportunity to vets who might be struggling, who need to get rid of meds, who not only just want to get rid of them from their house, but maybe like a situation like myself being in crisis mode where I cannot go home with these pills, and have the continuity across the board. You go to one VA and it's different than the next, and
that shouldn't be at all. It's federal. It should. And I didn't
Right.
mean to cut you off there in any way, shape, or form. I apologize for that. But I know of stories of where this level of care in California is, speaking specifically like regarding cannabis use, they're kind of okay with it. But here at other VAs, they're like, no. It's like, well, this is all the same. It should be continuity. So
Right.
I apologize for cutting you off.
No,
but yeah,
all
that's. It's just amazing to me how that's not the standard. I don't get it.
Right. And I think doctors need to have a little bit more freedom to make decisions for their patients themselves. I feel like the
Yes.
doctors and the providers run into a lot of red tape with trying to do. And I think that they end up getting so burnt out and so frustrated that they just naturally, I mean, if you're constantly running into brick walls, you're going to get defeated, and you're going to slow down, and you're going to not give the level of care and concern that you normally would. And that's no fault of them, but I think they need to have the abilities to say, okay, well, let's have these tests done, or I'm going to send you out to this facility if they don't have the resources to do it. So maybe some freedom there. I'm not exactly sure, to the extent what they do, but I feel like there's a lot of frustration with them even being able to do things sometimes.
Yeah.
So
You want doctors to be able to doctor and not just follow
Right. Actually practice medicine.
not just follow a matrix that says, oh, they have this, give them that. They have that, give them this.
Yep.
They need to be able to
Magic
actually go through
pill.
the process.
right.
So,
Yeah.
Elena, what about you? What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, there just needs to be, if they're going to keep it as just VA hospitals and they're going to keep it that way, then yeah, they need a hella way more providers so that they're not so burnt out with patient after patient after patient after patient that they can't even focus on the patient that's in front of them because they know that they have 60 more people that they still have to see today. So they're not even listening to the issue that you're talking about because they don't even have time to process what you're saying. You know what I mean?
What is the length of time that you would see your primary for?
5 minutes or less.
Okay.
That's pretty much how it goes on almost most of the appointments that I go to be honest. When I go in, I spend more time waiting in the waiting room than I actually do with the actual doctor most of the time. So it's like they're not how much, you know what I mean? And like half of the time you end up explaining what's going on because you're not seeing the same person over
Right.
again. So you're literally explaining what just happened at your last appointment or what's been going on with you. Because there's, again, no continuity. It's not the same every time you go. You're literally having to tell your story over and over and over again. It sounds silly, but like I had a hysterectomy in 2012. Still, every single time I go to the VA, they ask me when the first date of my last period was. So every single time I'm like, December 2011, I believe. And they're always like, what the fuck?
We're gonna run
and I'm
some
like,
tests.
yeah. Oh man, are you sure? You know what I mean? So it's like, come on. I shouldn't have to explain one small thing over and over and over again. Every single time I go to the VA, I shouldn't have to tell the doctor that I had a hysterectomy in 2012.
That should just be part of your chart. Like if you're seeing a new
It should
doctor,
be huge bold on my chart because that's a big, huge bold thing. Like if you
basic health stuff, here you go.
Right. Instead of, okay, here's my issue. Every single time you go in, you have to explain yourself. And I think for myself, it gets overwhelming. And then I forget a bunch of the things that I need to talk to the doctor about or wanted to talk to the doctor about because I just spent my time already explaining the things that I just told the last person.
Yep.
And I'm sure doing that over and over and over again, you forget a lot of shit from story to story to story.
Oh, so much gets left out. So it's you know what I mean? And yeah, like you said, being able to let doctors be doctors, having more, ability to do things. And I know, and especially that's why I am so grateful that I am in the community for my mental health care. Because especially mental health care for veterans, they are at the VA therapists. They are only allowed to use evidence-based treatment. It has to be this, this, or this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't fit into one of these 3 categories for therapy, like, that's it. We can't help you. You know what I mean?
You're on your own.
And access for mental health care, in my opinion, if a veteran says, I need mental health care 24 hours, they should be able to get and see someone within 24 hours. If a veteran literally says, I need help, how the hell are you going to deny them the help when they're straight up asking for it, when that's the hardest thing in the world for us to do is ask for help, and then to ask for mental health help and to be met with anything other than absolutely let's get you in somewhere immediately is unacceptable to me.
I agree. You can't make the drive. Guess what? We'll send somebody to come pick you up.
Yep. Or hey, we have telehealth people that are willing to talk to you right now. Or hey, guess what? Oh, we have a provider. It's not at the VA, but we have a mental health provider that's willing to see you, and they're 5 minutes from your house. And oh, you don't have a car to get there? Yeah, we'll give you a voucher to get there, a taxi voucher, or we'll pay for your Uber or whatever. Because that's the other part. It's accessibility. You're not thinking about the people that don't have money. So for a long time, you used to be able to go into the Phoenix VA, and if you needed to get your travel money, you could go right to the cashier, get the cash, and go do whatever. Which, think about it. If you're have to take a bus to get to the VA or a taxi or whatever because you don't have a car or money, how are you even supposed to get to your appointment if you don't have the money or the accessibility to get to your appointment? And it's stuff that people really aren't even thinking about. Accessibility means accessibility for everyone.
Agreed.
Not just the people that have a car or have a phone or have internet access. If I don't have internet access or a phone and I can't make an appointment because I can't use My Healthy Vet or e-benefits or whatever else because you don't have internet access, because you're low in, do you know what I mean? Like, accessibility has to be accessibility. If you have a phone, I should be able to call the VA and make an appointment with my phone. I shouldn't have to have internet access and a computer to be able to make an appointment or talk to my provider.
Agreed.
So if they're, you know what I mean? There's just things that need to change, access for people and literally making things available.
Funding.
We can send $40 billion to other countries to fight other wars, but we can't provide.
Say that.
I forgot. We're not allowed to talk about that. I was earlier, a few minutes ago, I was thinking about that. It's like, we can send billions and billions and billions of dollars to other fucking countries, but we can't provide basic accessibility for veterans who need it. We can't
The
provide.
budget doesn't allow.
The budget does not allow for
it's
more
because
than 12 visits for your mental health care.
Yeah, 12. Yeah, and then they want them done in 6 weeks
It's insane,
or
man.
less.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the other thing I kept saying. Why can't we, if we're doing a consult and you're going to give me 12 visits, why can't I do one each month? And they're like, oh no, it has to be done within like this time frame. I'm like,
Why?
Right. They're like, oh yeah, you get
that's
6
my
months of visits,
acupuncturist.
but it's going to take you 5 months to get into the system.
Right.
So
Insane.
It really helps with, the longevity of because you feel good for about, 5-6 weeks when you get them all crammed in there. Then after that, you feel like shit. And then you're back at square one. And I said, wouldn't it make more sense to spread those appointments out and
that would make
have
a
it
lot
as
more
a
sense.
wellness feature? But that's crazy talk.
I don't know what the solution is or what the answer is, but I think everything being said is like not out of the realm of possibilities. Like I do
funding, just like Jen said, that's
Funding.
literally what it all comes down to. If you are truly going to build up the VA medical system and make it a really good healthcare system, you gotta put some fucking money in it.
right.
Exactly. You got to allocate correctly.
The infrastructure's there. The hospitals are there.
Oh, it is.
All of the stuff is there. You just need to pump it full of money.
Yep.
And
It makes me think of the different MAGCOMs when I was active duty. I was at an air education and training base, and we had like
AETC.
AETC, baby. Like the lowest funding budget when it came to equipment, right? So we're deploying with Vietnam era Kevlar and flak vests and M16s, and you've got Space Command folks that are showing up with like the fancy tack vests, the M4s with the scopes on them, the padded nice helmets, and it's like the same. I equate that it's similar to the healthcare, right? You've got privatized healthcare where you can go and you can get some really good care with some really good doctors if you've got the money to do it. And then you've got this funded program that is like Vietnam era gear and equipment that you're basically
and the
dealing
doctors
with.
are actually Vietnam era as well.
Right?
Yep.
That's the big kicker.
It's too similar. And why is there such a turnover at regional offices? Like, what is that about? Why?
What's the cause?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
what's like that needs to be looked into. Like
do they just keep running into issues like doctors at just at a higher level where they can't get things done? They can't make changes because of.
Are they just as frustrated as the doctors and are like, "Fuck this! I'm gonna. This is broken, and there's nothing I can do."
More than likely,
right? And that's actually what I speculate, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, even my friends that worked at the VA after me, I said, "Just brace yourself," because they were like, "Oh, this is a great opportunity." I said, "It is and it isn't. Just brace yourself. It's a big beast." And then every single one of them, now that they're no longer working, they're like, "I would never work at that place ever again in my life." I just laugh. I said, you have to have a certain personality for it. And you have to be able to just like work at the pace of a turtle and not care about a lot. And, then you'll do fine. But if you're someone who gives even like a half a shit about people or, doing things and getting work done, it's probably not the place for you.
That's insane. That's insane that's the way it is.
And you're told, like, we love our veterans. We support our veterans. Like, you guys have done this. You guys the sacrifice
care.
And all of this stuff. Well, then our healthcare should show that. Our healthcare should show us
it should
how much
should
we
be
meant.
number one in the nation.
I agree.
Veterans
Really
healthcare should be like, oh shit, that's the best healthcare you can possibly get. I wish I want to go join the military now because I see the way that veterans are taken care of. When, if you're wondering why the military is so low, it's because everyone sees the way veterans are taken care of. I would, if I knew that this is the way I was going to be treated when I got out, I wouldn't have gotten in.
Right. But they entice you with but you get free healthcare for life when you retire.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys still get that from people? Oh, you're so lucky. I used to get it for years. You're so lucky you have free healthcare. And then after they started to learn more of like my journey and experiences in the VA, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you still get seen there.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
Yeah.
Well, we have been at this for right at 2 hours.
Damn,
Wow.
Gina.
I know, right?
Jabberwockies.
This is a conversation that needs to happen every single day, and it needs to get. Like I said, I'm going to send this to lawmakers directly and say, you need to shut up and listen for 2 hours. Take 2 hours of your time, and this is the bullshit that's happening, and it's not just here in Arizona. It's everywhere.
Yeah, and it's not bitching. We're not bitching.
No.
These are
real life experiences.
Yeah, and the three of us that are, you know what I mean, having these experiences. This is the norm.
Right.
This is not unusual. That's the thing that we need to preface. This is not unusual. All the shit show stuff that we've been talking about this entire time, that is the norm for the VA healthcare system.
Mm-hmm.
There is only one person I've ever met that uses the VA who has ever said, "Oh yeah, no, I get great care," and I can't remember specifically. I just remember having the conversation with them, and I was like, "You're the one." Like, you're the one that has.
Do they have very
on where you're
basic
at.
healthcare needs though?
Yeah, they probably go for their 1 year
their annual visit.
Yeah.
I hear great things
that's
about
pretty
the
much
VA
it.
in Vermont. Like, I have a very good friend that lives up there, and it's like top of the line care, like whatever you need. So it's like, okay, well, you have a more populated area like Maricopa County, who's got however many millions or whatever of veterans.
I think there's. I think I remember. I think I remember just recently pulling the numbers, and I think it's like 485,000 veterans here.
I retract the millions statement.
but that's in just metro.
In just this tiny area.
Yeah. That's not, I mean, because Arizona only has a couple of populated centers, and then the rest is all open desert pretty much. But yeah, that's a huge number for one hospital.
Mm-hmm. So it's true. The Topeka VA. Honestly, it was amazing. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, like Topeka VA, it was amazing. the parking lot was always empty.
Because there's nobody there.
Yeah, there was always an appointment. You could literally always get an appointment. And the people there were so nice because they had so much time.
Here's a question.
Free time. Yeah.
Do you or are you allowed to use the on-base hospital?
No.
Or is that completely separate and not allowed?
Totally separate.
If you're retired.
Okay, so if you're retired,
Tri-care.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have
can.
TRICARE.
Mhm.
but if you're disabled through
But
the
if you're
VA,
just say 100%,
Correct.
yeah,
No.
separate.
see now there's a fix right there. Why not allow veterans on-base care?
Because I'm just going to take a shot in the dark here and say, because if you had veterans going to Luke, their system would be just as overwhelmed as a VA
Yeah.
here. And then you've got active duty people that need to be mission ready. And I mean, you just kind of run into that stuff too. So more hospital, I don't know, more outsourcing, more money into just sending to more community care,
Yeah.
I guess maybe is potential, but
And if you're going to send to the community care, pay people what they're
Right.
actually worth.
Right.
So that way we can
Yeah.
actually get good doctors instead of the bottom of the barrel people that literally, you know, C's get degrees.
No, C's get degrees. Yeah, the same the med doctor that graduated with a D or a C minus is still a doctor.
Yep.
He still has MD at the end of his name. But that's the other thing though too, is that once you find that good doctor out in the community and you're not paying him, his ass is going to be like, I'm out. I'm not dealing with
Yep.
the VA
Right.
anymore.
Exactly.
one of the great things that they did was they allowed, there are community of urgent care centers that the VA has authorized.
Okay.
You don't need approval or anything. If you need an urgent care type facility, there are ones that are authorized.
Okay.
You go into, here you give your VA ID card or whatever, and they bill the VA.
Okay.
So that, at least when that came into, and that's only been around, 6 years? Within the past 10 years,
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
that's something that's changed. And it's great. Like, cool. I'm glad you did something. But just like the amount of veterans deaths that was going on at the Phoenix VA, and we led the nation in that, it's like, why are we being reactive instead of proactive? Like, there needs to be more of a proactive approach into fixing it instead of being like, oops, like this happened again, we better fix it type thing. Because they know the leaders up top are not numb and to the fact of what's going on. Like, they're well aware of a lot of the stuff that's going on, I'm sure, but why isn't it changing? Probably because the resources aren't being put
And
there.
funding.
Funding.
Yeah, funding.
Money.
So I sincerely appreciate this conversation. I sincerely appreciate, the sensitive nature of topics that we covered and y'all sharing your stories regarding that. So thank you very much.
Thanks for the platform, AJ.
100%.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
100%. Any freaking time. Jen called me a few days ago and says, "Can we do a VA podcast?" I'm like, "Come on down. Let's do it."
I'm like messaging Lacey, like, can you give me this? Can you give me that? Can you give me
I know. I was like, I'll just fly to Arizona.
That would be a hell of a lot
next
easier.
time, Yeah.
Right.
And so I really thank you, Lacey, for making the phone call. I appreciate it. So, and I'll get this up as soon as possible. So
Awesome.
Any
Thanks so much, guys.
any last words?
Hopefully we can make a change for the future. Like, we've got a lot of vets coming behind us, and all four of us advocate in our own way for veterans.
Yep.
And I think a lot of us in nature do advocate for
Yes.
each other, and we just need to keep doing it. But we need people in position to help make the difference. 'Cause
Amen.
we can only do so much.
Just gotta keep making noise.
Keep pushing.
Yep. Keep pushing.
Keep making noise.
Yep.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, Lacey, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
I'll send you the information when all this gets released.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good one, guys.
Talk to you
Bye,
later.
Lacey.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.